What if Harry spoke to Hogwarts portraits at age 5 and every dead wizard became his teacher? Chapter 1, The Friends in the Frames. The cupboard under the stairs wasn't much, but to 5-year-old Harry Potter, it was the entire world. Well, the entire world except for the occasional trips to Mrs. Figg's cat-filled house, school, and the times Aunt Petunia dragged him along grocery shopping. Harry curled up on his thin mattress, knees pulled to his chest. Another day of Dudley's chasing games had left him with scraped knees and a torn shirt that would definitely get him in trouble. Aunt Petunia had already locked him in for the night without dinner, muttering about ungrateful freakishness when he tried to explain that the torn clothes weren't his fault. "That's quite unfair, isn't it?" said a crisp voice from the darkness. Harry jerked upright, smacking his head on the low ceiling. "Who's there?" he whispered, heart pounding. "Over here, young man. On your wall." Harry squinted through the darkness toward his cupboard wall. Between the crayon scribbles and torn Spider-Man picture Dudley had thrown away, something new hung there, a small portrait frame containing the face of a stern-looking older man with a pointed beard and shrewd eyes. "You're a picture?" Harry whispered, crawling closer. "I am a portrait, thank you very much," sniffed the man. "Phineas Nigellus Black, former headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, at your reluctant service." Harry stared, mouth hanging open. "But, pictures don't talk. Magical ones do." Phineas raised an eyebrow. "And you, Harry Potter, are a wizard." Harry snorted. "I'm not a wizard. I'm just Harry. Just Harry who made his teacher's wig turn blue last month. Just Harry who somehow ended up on the school roof when running from bullies." Phineas smirked at Harry's shocked expression. "Oh yes, I know about those incidents. News travels, even among portraits." Harry's mind raced. Those strange things that happened around him, the ones that got him locked in the cupboard, had that been magic? "But how did you get here? And why are you talking to me?" Phineas sighed dramatically. "I haven't the faintest idea how I'm appearing to you. My primary portrait hangs in the headmaster's office at Hogwarts, with another in my family home. Yet somehow, I find myself connected to this charming cupboard." His nose wrinkled with distaste. "As for why I'm speaking to you, it appears you have an unusual magical connection to Hogwarts Castle itself, allowing you to perceive its portraits even from a distance." Harry reached out to touch the frame. It felt solid under his fingers, though there was something strange about it, almost like it wasn't really there and was at the same time. "So magic is real?" Harry whispered. "And I can do it?" "Yes, though typically not with any control until proper education. You come from a long line of witches and wizards, boy. Your parents were quite talented." Harry's heart skipped a beat. "My parents? You knew them?" Phineas's expression softened slightly. "Not personally. They attended Hogwarts long after my time. But I observed them from my portrait. Lily and James Potter, head girl and boy in their final year. Quite accomplished, if rather prone to rule-breaking in your father's case. But Aunt Petunia said they died in a car crash." "That they were." Harry's voice dropped, "unemployed drunks." Phineas's face darkened with anger. "Preposterous. Your parents were murdered by a dark wizard called Voldemort when you were just a baby. You survived, the only person ever to survive the killing curse, and became quite famous in our world. That scar on your forehead is the mark of it." Harry touched his lightning bolt scar automatically. "I'm famous. But why am I here then? With people who hate me?" "Politics and misguided protection, I imagine," Phineas said dismissively. "But this won't do at all. A Potter, heir to a noble wizarding family, living in a cupboard and ignorant of his heritage? Absolutely unacceptable. Can you help me?" Harry asked, hope flaring for the first time. Phineas studied him for a long moment, then nodded curtly. "I suppose I must. Your education clearly cannot wait until you receive your Hogwarts letter at 11. We'll begin immediately with wizarding history and theory. I can't teach you practical magic without a wand, but I can, came a woman's voice, and suddenly another portrait appeared beside Phineas, a fierce-looking witch with short dark hair and a scar across her cheek. Elizabeth Burke, dueling champion of 1878. I specialized in wandless magic. She winked at Harry. Useful skill for a boy without a wand, wouldn't you say? Harry's eyes widened. You can teach me magic. Real magic? The basics, at least, Elizabeth said. Control, focus, intent. The foundations that will make you truly formidable once you have a proper wand. This is highly irregular, Phineas muttered, though he didn't seem entirely displeased. Irregular times call for irregular measures, Elizabeth replied. The boy needs all the help he can get, living with these awful muggles. Muggles? Harry asked. Non-magical people, Phineas explained. Like your relatives. A thought struck Harry. Can they see you? Aunt Petunia and Uncle Vernon? No, Elizabeth said. Only you can see and hear us. Something about your magical connection to Hogwarts makes it possible. Harry grinned. For the first time in his life, he had something that was entirely his, something the Dursleys couldn't take away. When do we start? He asked eagerly. Right now, said Phineas. Lesson 1, the founding of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, established around 990 AD by 4 of the greatest witches and wizards of the age. The next 6 years transformed Harry's life completely. While outwardly he remained the Dursleys' neglected nephew, inwardly he flourished under the tutelage of an ever-growing collection of portrait mentors. His days fell into a pattern. At school, he deliberately performed just well enough to avoid attention. Too good would invite Dursley wrath, too poor would bring teacher scrutiny. But at night, locked in his cupboard, his real education began. Phineas taught him wizarding history, politics, and pure-blood etiquette. Stand straighter, boy. A Potter doesn't slouch. The noble house of Black may outrank you, but you still come from an ancient lineage. Elizabeth focused on practical magic. Feel the energy in your fingertips, she instructed as 7-year-old Harry strained to light a candle stub he'd smuggled into his cupboard. Magic isn't just words and wands, it's intent, will, and power. Direct it. Harry's face scrunched with concentration. The candle wick trembled, smoked, then burst into flame. He fell back, exhausted but grinning. Excellent. Elizabeth clapped her painted hands. You have natural talent for wandless magic. Most adult wizards can barely manage this. More portraits appeared as time passed. Edmund Gamp, a theoretical magician from the 1700s, explained magical principles with endless patience. Cleodna, an ancient Irish witch, taught him healing spells that Harry used to mend his own injuries after Harry hunting sessions. Professor Vindictus Viridian showed him subtle defensive jinxes, while Lady Carmilla Sanguina, despite Phineas's disapproval of her questionable history with blood, taught him to move silently and hide in shadows. By 8, Harry could perform basic wandless spells, lighting fires, moving small objects, mending simple things, and even a weak shield charm that had once, miraculously, deflected a frying pan Aunt Petunia had swung at him. The incident was confusing enough that she convinced herself she'd missed. You must be careful, warned Helena Ravenclaw's portrait after that incident. The daughter of Rowena Ravenclaw rarely spoke, but when she did, Harry listened. Accidental magic is expected in children. Controlled wandless magic will raise questions you're not ready to answer. Harry nodded seriously. I'm careful. I only use it when I'm alone or when it's really necessary. His portrait friends gave him more than magical knowledge. They gave him his first glimpses of his parents. Your mother had this delightful charm that made flowers bloom in midwinter, said Professor Herbology, who taught at Hogwarts in the 1960s. Brought a bouquet of lilies to Professor Slughorn to get out of detention once. Cheeky, but brilliant. James Potter could transform into a stag, Sir Cadogan told him proudly. Unregistered animagus by 15. Gallant rule-breaking, worthy of any knight. Harry treasured these stories, collecting them like precious gems. His mother's brilliance at charms and potions. His father's talent for transfiguration and flying. Their friends, Sirius, Remus, Peter. Their enemies, Snape, Malfoy. Their heroism in standing against Voldemort. The portraits didn't just teach him about magic and family. They became his family, in a strange way. "You've got dirt on your face again," Elizabeth would scold, somehow managing to sound like Harry imagined a mother would. "Have you been eating enough?" Helga Hufflepuff's portrait would ask, fretting over his thin frame. "Those muggles starve you. When you get to Hogwarts, come to the kitchens. The house elves will feed you properly." Even Phineas, for all his sternness, showed moments of grandfatherly pride. "The boy has the black family gift for mental shields," he announced after teaching Harry the basics of occlumency. "Must come from your grandmother Doria Black's side." But the greatest gift came when Harry was 9. A portrait appeared of a young witch with bright red hair and startlingly familiar green eyes. "Hello, Harry," she said softly. Harry dropped the sock he'd been mending. "Mum," he whispered. She nodded, smiling through tears. "I'm not really her, just a portrait based on her time at Hogwarts. But I have her memories until age 17. Harry reached out with trembling fingers, touching the canvas. Can you tell me everything?" And she did. Through long nights, Lily's portrait told Harry about growing up as a muggle-born witch, discovering magic, meeting a boy named Severus Snape, receiving her Hogwarts letter. She told him about her parents, his grandparents, who had been so proud of their magical daughter. "You have your grandfather's chin," she told him. "And my mother's kindness. They would have adored you, Harry." No portrait of his father appeared, which Phineas explained was likely because James hadn't spent as much time around the castle portraits during his school years. "Too busy causing mischief elsewhere," he sniffed. Still, through his mother's stories, Harry felt he knew James too, his arrogance as a youth, his growth into a better man, his unfailing loyalty to friends, his complete devotion to Lily and their son. The knowledge Harry accumulated went far beyond magic and family history. The portraits taught him about the wizarding world structure and politics. He learned about Gringotts and the Ministry, about pureblood society and creature rights, about the rise of Voldemort and the resistance against him. "Knowledge is power," Rowena Ravenclaw's portrait told him. "And you, child, will need all the power you can gather." By his 10th birthday, Harry was practicing more advanced wandless magic in the relative privacy of the park near Privet Drive. He could levitate heavier objects, produce strong light, create small illusions, and even cast a weak confundus charm that had gotten him out of several tight spots with Dudley's gang. He'd also grown more strategic about handling the Dursleys. A subtle wandless warming charm kept him from freezing during winter punishments in the cupboard. A preserving charm allowed him to store stolen food without spoilage. Tiny confundus charms made the Dursleys occasionally forget they hadn't fed him. "You're breaking the statute of secrecy," Phineas would grumble. "Survival supersedes statutes," Elizabeth would counter. Besides, the Ministry can't detect wandless magic. Harry's life changed dramatically when he turned 10 and Dudley's second bedroom became his after a mysterious letter arrived addressed to Mr. H. Potter, the cupboard under the stairs. Uncle Vernon had gone white-faced, immediately moving Harry upstairs. "They're watching the house," Harry overheard him telling Aunt Petunia. "Those freaks know where he sleeps." Harry smirked, knowing his Hogwarts letter would arrive in exactly 9 months. His portrait friends had prepared him thoroughly. The bedroom provided more space and privacy for his studies. A loose floorboard became his hiding place for small treasures, a photo of his parents that Helena Ravenclaw had described in enough detail for him to draw, notes on advanced magic, and small objects he'd enchanted with persistent spells. His latest achievement was a self-inking quill he'd created following Rowena Ravenclaw's instructions. Without a wand, the enchantment had taken weeks of concentrated effort, but the result was worth it, a writing tool that never needed ink. Exceptional charm work, his mother's portrait praised. I was 17 before I managed a permanent enchantment. As his 11th birthday approached, his portrait mentors intensified their teachings. You'll need to pretend ignorance when your letter arrives, Phineas instructed. Dumbledore mustn't know you've been educated already. It would raise too many questions. Let Hagrid, he's the groundskeeper who'll fetch you, guide you through Diagon Alley as though it's all new, Elizabeth added. But make sure you visit your family vault, not just the student withdrawal point. The Potter wealth should be substantial. And find excuses to wander on your own in the bookshop, said Edmund. There are several advanced texts you should purchase without raising suspicion. Harry absorbed it all, both excited and anxious about finally entering the world he'd learned so much about. Will I still be able to see you when I leave here? He asked his portrait friends. More clearly than ever, Helena assured him. Our true portraits hang at Hogwarts. What you see here are mere echoes, connected through your magical link to the castle. At Hogwarts, we'll be in our proper frames, able to move between portraits throughout the school. The night before his birthday, Harry lay awake in his bed, too excited to sleep. The glowing numbers of his repaired alarm clock, fixed with a wandless reparo after Dudley had smashed it, showed 11:58 p.m. Almost time, whispered his mother's portrait from where it hung, concealed by a simple notice me not charm, beside his bed. I'm nervous, Harry admitted. What if I don't fit in? What if I do something wrong and they realize I already know magic? You'll be magnificent, Lily said confidently. Just be yourself, well, the version of yourself that hasn't been secretly trained by portraits for 6 years. She winked. The clock ticked over to midnight. Harry Potter was officially 11 years old. Somewhere in the distance, he thought he could hear the rumble of a motorcycle. Happy birthday, Harry, his mother's portrait said softly. Your real life is about to begin. The next few days were a whirlwind exactly as his portrait mentors had predicted. The flood of letters, Uncle Vernon's breakdown, the flight to the hut on the rock, and finally, Hagrid's dramatic entrance. Harry played his part perfectly, feigning surprise at being a wizard, asking innocent questions about Hogwarts, and expressing wonder at his parents' true history. Only once did he nearly slip up, when Hagrid mentioned Dumbledore. Greatest wizard of modern times, Hagrid said proudly. But not the greatest ever, right? Harry asked automatically, thinking of Merlin and the Founders, before catching himself. I mean, there must have been other great ones in history, he amended quickly. Hagrid didn't seem to notice anything amiss, launching into praise of Dumbledore's defeat of Grindelwald while Harry silently thanked Elizabeth for all those lessons in controlling his expressions. The trip to Diagon Alley was overwhelming despite his preparation. The reality of the magical world was so much more vibrant and chaotic than even the most detailed portrait descriptions. At Gringotts, he managed to quietly ask about his family vault in addition to his trust fund, but was told he couldn't access it until he was 17. Still, the goblin gave him a detailed statement that Harry carefully tucked away. The Potter fortune was indeed substantial, just as his mentors had suggested. The wand shop was the true revelation. After trying dozens of wands, when his fingers finally closed around Holly and Phoenix Feather, the rush of power was unlike anything his wandless practice had prepared him for. Magic surged through him like a tidal wave, nearly bringing tears to his eyes. Curious, Ollivander murmured, explaining the wand's connection to Voldemort's. Harry nodded solemnly, pretending this was new information rather than something he'd learned years ago from Phineas. The rest of summer passed in agonizing slowness. Harry devoured his textbooks, pretending to his relatives that he was reading them for the first time while actually focusing on the advanced material he'd purchased during a bathroom break in Flourish and Blots. With his wand now available, he practiced the movements for spells he already knew wandlessly, careful not to actually cast anything that would trigger the trace. The wand work for Wingardium Leviosa is more precise than you need for wandless levitation, Edmund explained as Harry practiced in his bedroom. The wand channels and focuses your power more efficiently, but with less flexibility. On the morning of September 1st, Harry stood before his portrait mentors for the last time at Privet Drive. "Remember everything we've taught you," Phineas said sternly. "Conduct yourself with dignity befitting your heritage, but maintain the facade of an ordinary first year. We'll see you at Hogwarts," Elizabeth promised. "Find our portraits as soon as you can safely do so without drawing attention." His mother's portrait smiled warmly. "I'm so proud of you, Harry. You're going to be amazing." Harry touched her frame gently. "Thank you. All of you. I wouldn't have survived here without you." Then he shrunk his trunk with a wandless charm, after making sure no ministry censors were watching, slipped it into his pocket, and headed downstairs to begin the journey that would finally take him to the place he'd heard so much about, the place that, in his heart, already felt like home. Platform 9 3/4 bustled with activity as Harry pushed his cart toward the gleaming Hogwarts Express. Following his mentor's advice, he'd had Uncle Vernon drop him at King's Cross early, giving him time to observe the wizarding families arriving and get his bearings. He spotted several students he recognized from his portrait friends' descriptions: the Weasleys with their distinctive red hair, Augusta Longbottom and her vulture hat accompanying her grandson Neville, and the Malfoys arriving with aristocratic flair. Harry kept his head down, cap pulled low over his scar. His portraits had warned him about his fame, and he wanted to delay the inevitable recognition as long as possible. On the train, he found an empty compartment and settled in with a book on advanced defensive magic disguised with a cover from Quidditch Through the Ages. Soon, the compartment door slid open to reveal a red-haired boy Harry immediately recognized as a Weasley. "Anyone sitting there?" the boy asked, pointing to the seat opposite Harry. "Everywhere else is full." Harry gestured welcomingly. "It's all yours. I'm Ron, by the way." "Ron Weasley," the boy said, sitting down. "Harry Potter," Harry replied, watching Ron's eyes widen predictably. "Have you really got the, you know?" Ron pointed at Harry's forehead. Harry sighed internally but lifted his bangs to show the lightning scar. "Wicked," Ron breathed. "And do you remember anything about, you know, when you know who?" "Just a lot of green light," Harry said quietly, recalling the flashes of memory he'd sorted through during a clemency practice with Phineas. "Nothing else." Their conversation was interrupted by a bushy-haired girl already wearing her Hogwarts robes. "Has anyone seen a toad?" "A boy named Neville's lost one." Harry recognized her from Elizabeth's description of likely Muggleborns to watch for. Hermione Granger, born September 19, 1979, displayed significant accidental magic from age 4. "Haven't seen any toads," Harry said politely. "But have you tried a summoning charm? Accio Neville's toad might work." Hermione looked startled. "We can't do magic like that yet. I've only tried a few simple spells myself, just for practice, and they've all worked for me." Harry mentally kicked himself. "First years wouldn't know summoning charms." "Just something I read about in one of the books," he covered quickly. "Thought an older student might help." The rest of the journey passed in a blur of chocolate frogs, conversations about houses, and a brief, tense encounter with Draco Malfoy that Harry navigated carefully, neither accepting nor entirely rejecting the boy's overtures. His portrait mentors had taught him about the complexities of wizarding politics, and making an enemy of the Malfoy heir on day one seemed unwise. As the train approached Hogsmeade Station, excitement bubbled inside Harry. Beyond the thrill any first year would feel, he carried the anticipation of finally seeing his portrait friends in their true frames, in the castle they described so vividly for years. Hagrid led the first years across the lake, and Harry got his first real glimpse of Hogwarts. Despite years of descriptions, the sight of the castle rising majestically against the night sky took his breath away. Lights glimmered from countless windows, reflecting in the dark water below, and Harry felt something stir deep inside him, a sense of connection, of coming home. As they approached the massive oak front doors, Harry felt a subtle shift in the magic around him. For a brief moment, it was as if the castle itself recognized him, welcoming the child who had spoken to its portraits for so many years. The sensation passed quickly, but left Harry with a warm certainty. Hogwarts knew him, and he belonged here. Professor McGonagall greeted them in the entrance hall exactly as Phineas had described her, stern, imposing, but with a hint of warmth beneath the strict exterior. Harry listened to her explanation of the houses with polite attention, though he could have recited it himself after years of hearing about Hogwarts sorting traditions. In the small chamber where they waited, several ghosts drifted through the wall. While the other first-years gasped, Harry's eyes immediately went to the silvery figure of Helena Ravenclaw, the Grey Lady. For just a moment, their eyes met, and Harry thought he saw a flicker of recognition before she glided away with the other ghosts. Finally, they entered the Great Hall. The enchanted ceiling showed a velvety black sky dotted with stars, exactly as his mother's portrait had described. Thousands of candles floated above 4 long tables where students sat watching the new arrivals. At the top of the hall, the staff table stretched across a raised platform. Harry scanned the high walls quickly, spotting several familiar portrait faces among the hundreds that hung there. Elizabeth winked at him from a frame near the Gryffindor table. Phineas nodded almost imperceptibly from his position near the staff table. A rush of comfort washed over Harry. His friends were here, watching over him. The Sorting Hat sang its song, and then Professor McGonagall began calling students forward. Harry watched each sorting with interest, mentally noting which students went to which houses. When Hermione was sorted into Gryffindor, he smiled slightly, remembering Elizabeth's prediction that the girl's courage would outweigh her obvious intelligence. "Potter, Harry," McGonagall called, and the hall fell silent before erupting in whispers. Harry walked forward, acutely aware of every eye upon him. As the hat dropped over his eyes, he carefully maintained the occlumency shields Phineas had taught him, allowing the hat to see his personality and core traits, but not his unusual education. Said a small voice in his ear. "Difficult. Very difficult. Plenty of courage, I see. Not a bad mind either. There's talent, oh my goodness, yes, and a thirst to prove yourself. But where to put you?" Harry thought of his parents in Gryffindor, of Phineas in Slytherin, of Helena in Ravenclaw, of all his portrait friends from different houses who had taught him that house divisions were ultimately artificial constructs. "Put me where I'll grow the most," Harry thought to the hat. "Where you'll grow the most, the hat seemed amused. "Well, in that case, better be Gryffindor." The Gryffindor table exploded with cheers as Harry removed the hat and walked toward his new house. Fred and George Weasley were doing a victory dance and chanting, "We got Potter. We got Potter." As Harry sat down, he caught Dumbledore's eye at the staff table. The headmaster raised his goblet slightly in toast, his blue eyes twinkling. Harry nodded respectfully, recalling Phineas's warnings about the old wizard's perceptiveness. The feast that followed was everything Harry had imagined and more. He ate until he couldn't manage another bite, listening to the conversations around him and answering questions about himself with carefully constructed half-truths. As Percy led the first years up to Gryffindor Tower, Harry glanced at the portraits they passed. Most watched with mild interest, but a few, the ones who had visited his cupboard, gave him secret smiles or tiny nods of recognition. Later that night, as his dormmate slept, Harry lay awake in his four-poster bed, overwhelmed by the day's events. From his vantage point, he could see out the window to the starlit grounds below. Somewhere in the castle, his portrait mentors were waiting for him to visit when he could slip away unnoticed. For the first time in his life, Harry felt truly at home. He had friends both in frames and in flesh. He had knowledge and skills that would help him navigate whatever challenges came his way. And most importantly, he had a connection to his parents and his heritage that the Dursleys had never been able to take from him. Tomorrow, classes would begin, and with them the challenge of appearing to be a normal first year while secretly possessing years of magical education. But tonight, Harry simply savored the feeling of being where he belonged at last. As sleep finally claimed him, his last thought was of his mother's portrait, and how proud she had looked when he told her about his sorting. "Just like your father and me," she had said in his imagination. "Welcome home, Harry. Welcome home." Chapter 2, Secrets of the Castle. Harry woke before his dorm mates on his first morning at Hogwarts. The sun barely peeked through the tower windows as he slipped out of bed, grabbed his wand and a small notebook, and crept silently to the common room. Empty. Perfect. He settled into a corner armchair and waited. Within moments, a familiar face appeared in a nearby painting of medieval scholars. "Phineas," Harry whispered with a grin. The former headmaster stepped fully into the frame, eyebrow raised. "Out of bed at dawn already? Perhaps you inherited your father's penchant for wandering after all. I couldn't wait to talk to you properly. Where are the others?" "Scattered throughout the castle in their proper frames. Elizabeth resides primarily near the defense classroom. Edmund frequents the library portraits. Your mother's school portrait hangs in a lesser-used corridor on the 3rd floor. I'll show you when time permits." Harry leaned forward eagerly. "Can you give me a map of where to find everyone?" "Better than a map," Phineas replied, reaching into his painted robes. He withdrew a small scroll and pressed it against the canvas. To Harry's amazement, the painted scroll pushed through the frame, becoming solid as it entered the real world. Harry took it with wide eyes. "How did you, portrait magic," Phineas said dismissively. "Limited, but useful in certain circumstances. The parchment shows the location of every portrait friend you've made. It will update as they move between frames." Harry unrolled it to find a detailed Hogwarts floor plan with tiny moving dots labeled with his mentors' names. "This is brilliant." "Indeed. Now listen carefully. You must appear average in your classes. First-year spells should seem new to you. Reserve your true abilities for genuine emergencies." Harry nodded. "I've been practicing looking confused when people explain basic magic." "Good. Your head of house is particularly observant. McGonagall missed nothing during my tenure as headmaster." Phineas glanced toward the dormitory stairs. "Your housemates will wake soon. Meet me tonight at the portrait of Barnabas the Barmy on the 7th floor. There's a room you should know about." With that, Phineas stepped out of the frame, leaving Harry clutching the magical map and buzzing with excitement for the day ahead. Harry's first week at Hogwarts became an elaborate performance. In charms, he deliberately failed his first few attempts at Wingardium Leviosa before succeeding, with precisely the level of wobbliness Professor Flitwick expected from a talented beginner. Transfiguration proved trickier. When McGonagall demonstrated turning a desk into a pig, Harry couldn't contain his fascinated expression, not because it was new, but because seeing transfiguration with a proper wand rather than through portrait descriptions was genuinely incredible. When they attempted turning matches into needles, Harry carefully transformed his match exactly halfway, silver but still wooden, earning an approving nod from McGonagall without drawing undue attention. Only in potions did his performance falter. The moment he entered the dungeon classroom, Snape fixed him with such a hateful glare that Harry nearly tripped. His mother's portrait had warned him about the complicated history between Snape and his parents, but the reality proved jarring. "Potter," Snape sneered during roll call. "Our new celebrity." Several Slytherins sniggered. Harry kept his expression neutral, thinking of Phineas's lessons in pureblood composure. Snape launched immediately into questioning him. "Potter, what would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood?" Draught of living death, Harry knew immediately. His mother's portrait had specifically mentioned this potion when discussing Snape's expertise. But first-year Harry shouldn't know this. "I don't know, sir," he said, keeping his eyes level with Snape's. "Fame clearly isn't everything," Snape said silkily. More questions followed, Bezoars, Wolfsbane and Monkshood, each one Harry could have answered perfectly but instead replied with carefully crafted ignorance. Only when they began brewing did Harry allow himself to show some competence. His mother had been brilliant at potions, and he'd absorbed her theoretical lessons eagerly. He prepared ingredients with practiced precision, drawing a curious look from Hermione at the neighboring table. When Neville's cauldron melted into a twisted blob, sending potion splashing towards several students, Harry reacted instinctively. His hand made a subtle gesture beneath the table, and the acidic potion stopped mid-air, hovering momentarily before dropping harmlessly to the floor. No one noticed except Hermione, who stared at him with narrowed eyes. After class, she cornered him in the corridor. "How did you do that?" "Do what?" Harry asked innocently. "Stop Neville's potion. You did something with your hand." Her brown eyes bored into him. "No idea what you're talking about," Harry said with a convincing shrug. "Probably just didn't splash in our direction." "Lucky, right?" Hermione clearly didn't believe him but couldn't prove otherwise. "You're hiding something, Harry Potter," she said before marching away. Ron appeared at his side. "Mental, that one. Coming to lunch?" Harry nodded, relieved yet slightly impressed by Hermione's perception. He'd need to be more careful around her. That night, Harry slipped out after curfew under his invisibility cloak, a Christmas gift from his father according to his mother's portrait, though Harry suspected Dumbledore had been the actual sender. The cloak provided perfect cover for his nighttime explorations. He found Phineas waiting in Barnabas the Barmy's portrait, watching the ballet dancing trolls with distaste. Undignified, Phineas muttered before noticing Harry. "Ah, you've arrived. Remove that cloak so I can see you." Harry obeyed, tucking the silvery material under his arm. "What's this room you mentioned?" "The come-and-go room, also called the room of requirement. Pace 3 times before this wall while thinking clearly of what you need." Harry raised an eyebrow but did as instructed, focusing on needing a place to practice advanced magic unseen. On his third pass, a door materialized in the previously blank wall. Harry gasped. "Go on," Phineas urged from his frame. Harry pushed the door open to reveal a spacious training room with dummy targets, bookshelves filled with advanced magical texts, and a large practice area with cushioned flooring. The walls featured empty portrait frames that Phineas immediately stepped into from the corridor painting. "This room becomes whatever you require," Phineas explained. "Within reasonable limits, of course. It cannot create food or certain magical artifacts, but for training purposes, it's ideal." Other portrait frames filled with familiar faces, Elizabeth, Edmund, Cleodna, and more of his mentor portraits appearing in the empty frames. "Welcome to your real magical education," Elizabeth said, beaming proudly. "Now that you have a wand and a proper practice space, we can begin teaching you what a young wizard of your potential truly needs to know." Harry grinned, twirling his wand eagerly. "Where do we start?" Over the following weeks, Harry established a rhythm. During days, he attended classes, maintaining his facade of normal first-year development while building friendships with his housemates, particularly Ron. At night, 2 or 3 times weekly, he visited the room of requirement for advanced training with his portrait mentors. Elizabeth drilled him in defensive magic far beyond first-year level. "The shield charm is essential," she insisted as Harry practiced. Protego. A shimmering barrier erupted from his wand, stronger than his wandless version but still not as powerful as he wanted. "Again," Elizabeth commanded. "Visualize the shield as solid energy, not just light." Edmund focused on magical theory and wand-based spellcasting techniques. "Wandless magic served you well without alternatives," he explained, "but wand magic offers precision and power that wandless cannot match. The wand movement for Incendio is a tight spiral, not the loose curl you're using." Harry adjusted his technique, and the training dummy before him erupted in controlled flames that extinguished at his counterwave. Cleodna taught healing charms. Episki for minor injuries, she instructed as Harry practiced on a conjured model of a broken finger. The wand motion must be fluid but decisive. His mother's portrait, now accessible in both the room of requirement and her actual location on the 3rd floor, taught him her specialty, charms and potions. Potions require patience, she reminded him as he brewed a strengthening solution well beyond first-year curriculum. Stir precisely, never rush. One night, a month into term, Harry discovered another unexpected mentor in the room of requirement. As he entered, he found a portrait he hadn't seen before, a regal-looking wizard with a magnificent phoenix on his shoulder. Godric Gryffindor, the portrait introduced itself. I've been watching you, young Potter. Your progress impresses me. Harry gaped. You're really him? A founder? Godric smiled. A representation of him, with his memories and knowledge. My true portrait hangs in a hidden location within the castle, but I've chosen to visit. Why me? Harry asked. Because you speak to portraits, child. Few wizards bother truly conversing with us anymore. Fewer still possess your particular connection to Hogwarts itself. Godric studied him thoughtfully. You carry an echo of my magic within you, the Potter line descends partially from my own. Perhaps that explains your unusual connection. That night, Godric taught Harry the fundamentals of dueling, not the flashy sport version, but true combat techniques designed for survival. Position before power, he instructed as Harry practiced proper footwork. A well-placed minor hex defeats a poorly aimed blasting curse every time. By late October, Harry's abilities had advanced dramatically. He could perform most third-year spells competently and even some fourth-year defensive magic. His wandless abilities had strengthened as well, providing a secret advantage he kept carefully hidden during daily classes. Only once did he slip. During flying lessons, when Neville fell and broke his wrist, Malfoy seized the forgotten Remembrall and took flight. Harry, without thinking, performed a wandless summoning charm while mounting his broom, causing the Remembrall to jerk from Malfoy's hand directly to his own before he'd even left the ground. Several students gasped. Hermione's eyes widened in recognition. Did you see that? She whispered to Parvati. The ball moved before he reached it. Harry quickly covered by pretending to fumble and nearly dropped the ball, then taking flight to distract attention with his broom work. It worked. McGonagall's arrival and his subsequent appointment as Seeker overshadowed any questions about the Remembrall incident. But later, Hermione approached him again. That was a summoning charm, she said without preamble. That's fourth-year magic. Harry ran a hand through his hair. No idea what you mean. I just flew really fast. No, you didn't, she persisted. You did wandless magic. I've read about it, it's extremely advanced. How do you know how to do that? Harry considered his options. Hermione was too observant to fool completely, and potentially too valuable as an ally to alienate. Look, he said quietly, I've got some unusual magical abilities. Nothing dangerous, just different. I'd rather not talk about it. Does it have something to do with surviving the killing curse? She pressed. Maybe, Harry hedged. Please, Hermione. I'm not doing anything wrong, I promise. She studied him for a long moment. Fine. Keep your secrets for now, Harry Potter. But I'll figure it out eventually. Harry smiled. I'm counting on it. The castle revealed its secrets to Harry faster than it did to most first years, thanks to his portrait guides. They showed him hidden passages, secret shortcuts, and concealed rooms throughout Hogwarts. The kitchens are accessed through this pair, explained a portrait of a former chef, showing Harry how to tickle the painted fruit to reveal a handle. The house elves love visitors, especially polite ones. Helena Ravenclaw's portrait directed him to forgotten study rooms with ancient texts. My mother valued knowledge above all else, she said softly. These books contain magic most have forgotten. Even the ghosts seemed to recognize something unusual about Harry. The Grey Lady nodded to him respectfully when they passed in corridors. Sir Nicholas engaged him in conversations about magical history that no ordinary first year should understand. Only Peeves treated Harry like any other student, pelting him with chalk and water balloons at every opportunity. Somehow, that felt reassuring. Harry shared some discoveries with Ron, like the kitchen entrance and certain shortcuts, but kept the more significant secrets to himself. Ron proved an excellent friend, loyal, straightforward, and undemanding of explanations when Harry occasionally disappeared for extra studying. Their friendship solidified through shared experiences, Quidditch practice, navigating classes, and avoiding Filch. Harry genuinely enjoyed Ron's company and chess skills, finding in him a connection to normal wizarding childhood he'd never experienced. Hermione remained more complicated. Her intelligence made her dangerous to Harry's secrets, but her isolation from their peers tugged at his conscience. He recognized her brilliance and occasionally engaged her in academic discussions that left Ron rolling his eyes. "Mental, both of you," Ron would mutter when they debated magical theory at breakfast. Still, the trio hadn't quite formed. Hermione's know-it-all tendencies and Ron's casual attitude toward academics kept them at odds, with Harry caught between. Everything changed on Halloween. The great hall gleamed with floating pumpkins and live bats swooping between candles. Feast aromas filled the air as students piled their plates with seasonal treats. Harry, remembering this marked the anniversary of his parents' deaths, felt a complex mixture of sadness and gratitude for the knowledge his portrait mentors had given him of Lily and James. He picked at his food while Ron enthusiastically described the coming Quidditch match against Slytherin to Seamus and Dean. "Where's Hermione?" Neville asked suddenly, looking around. Parvati leaned forward. "Crying in the girls' bathroom. Ron said she didn't have any friends." Ron's ears reddened. "Well, she doesn't," he muttered defensively. Harry frowned, about to respond when Professor Quirrell burst into the hall, turban askew and terror on his face. "Troll, in the dungeons, thought you ought to know." He collapsed in a dead faint. Chaos erupted until Dumbledore shot purple firecrackers from his wand and ordered prefects to lead students to dormitories. As they filed out, Harry grabbed Ron's arm. "Hermione doesn't know about the troll." Ron looked conflicted. "Oh, all right," he sighed. "But Percy better not see us." They slipped away from the Gryffindors and hurried toward the girls' bathroom. Turning a corner, Harry caught a foul stench and spotted the troll shuffling down the corridor, heading directly for the bathroom. "It's leaving the dungeons," Ron whispered. "Should we get a teacher?" "No time," Harry said, mind racing through combat scenarios Elizabeth had drilled into him. "We need to warn Hermione." They hurried after the troll, reaching the bathroom just as a high-pitched scream erupted from inside. Harry burst through the door to find Hermione shrinking against the wall, the 12-foot troll advancing on her with its massive club raised. "Distract it." Harry shouted to Ron, who immediately threw a metal pipe at the troll's head. The troll turned toward the noise, giving Harry precious seconds. Every portrait training session crystallized into instinct. Instead of the levitation charm a first-year might attempt, Harry drew his wand and cast a powerful impediment jinx, fourth-year magic, directly at the troll's knees. Impedimenta. The spell hit with enough force to stagger the creature, temporarily slowing its movement. Not waiting to see if Ron noticed the advanced spell, Harry dashed forward. "Hermione, move," he yelled, grabbing her arm. The troll recovered more quickly than expected, swinging its club down toward them. Harry reacted with practiced precision, shouting, "Protego." A shield charm, far beyond first-year ability, formed between them and the club, deflecting it into a row of sinks that shattered with a crash. Water sprayed everywhere as the troll roared in confusion. "Ron!" On 3, cast Wingardium Leviosa at the club. 1, 2, 3. Ron, wide-eyed but determined, performed the charm they'd learned earlier that day. Harry simultaneously cast his own silent levitation charm, adding power to Ron's spell. The club soared from the troll's grip, rising high into the air, then dropped with tremendous force onto its owner's head. The troll swayed, then fell flat on its face with a thud that shook the entire bathroom. Hermione rose shakily from her crouched position. "Is it dead?" "Just knocked out," Harry said, checking its pulse as Cleodna had taught him. Thundering footsteps approached, and suddenly Professor McGonagall burst in, followed by Snape and Quirrell. McGonagall's face shifted from anger to shock at the scene before her. "What on earth were you thinking?" she demanded, cold fury in her voice. Before Harry could respond, Hermione stepped forward. "It's my fault, Professor. I went looking for the troll. I've read about them and thought I could handle it. If Harry and Ron hadn't found me, I'd be dead now." Harry and Ron tried to keep their expressions neutral at this blatant lie from rule-abiding Hermione. "Miss Granger, 5 points from Gryffindor for serious lack of judgment," McGonagall said sternly. "As for you two gentlemen, well, not many first-years could take on a full-grown mountain troll and live to tell the tale. 5 points to Gryffindor each. For sheer dumb luck." As they left the bathroom, Harry noticed Snape's calculating gaze and the blood staining his robes, and something else. Quirrell stood slightly apart, and Harry caught a momentary expression on his face that seemed entirely at odds with his frightened demeanor. For just an instant, the defense professor looked annoyed. Almost angry that the troll had been defeated. Back in the common room, as the three settled into armchairs away from curious housemates, Hermione fixed Harry with a penetrating stare. "That wasn't first-year magic," she said quietly. "Shield charms aren't taught until 6th year." Harry sighed. "I told you. I have some unusual abilities." "That's more than unusual," she persisted. "That's advanced training." Ron looked between them, confused. "What are you talking about?" "We got lucky, that's all." Hermione ignored him, still focused on Harry. "I want to know how." "Not everything, just something. We nearly died tonight. I think I deserve some truth." Harry considered his options. The troll incident had cemented something between the three of them, a bond that felt significant. Perhaps sharing a small piece of his secret was worth the risk. "I've had teachers," he said carefully. "Since before Hogwarts. They showed me things most first-years don't know." "Teachers?" Ron asked. "But you grew up with Muggles." "Not all teachers are alive," Harry said meaningfully. Hermione's eyes widened in understanding. "The portraits," she breathed. "Hogwarts portraits can move throughout the castle, and some contain significant knowledge of their subjects. But how could you access them before coming here?" Harry smiled slightly. "That's the part one don't fully understand myself. Somehow, I formed a connection to Hogwarts portraits when I was 5. They appeared in my cupboard, my room at the Dursleys." Ron looked bewildered, but Hermione nodded slowly. "I've read that magical buildings can sometimes form connections to their future inhabitants, especially those with strong magical signatures. Your survival of the killing curse might have marked you with enough magical resonance to establish such a link." "Maybe," Harry said, relieved she'd provided a plausible theory he hadn't needed to invent. "Anyway, they taught me things. Helped me survive the Dursleys. Prepared me for Hogwarts." "Wicked," Ron whispered. "Like having private tutors no one knew about." "Why keep it secret?" Hermione asked. Harry's expression darkened slightly. "Because people already stare at me everywhere I go. Because I don't want to be more of a freak than I already am. Because..." He hesitated, then decided to trust them with a more significant truth, "because I think someone put me with the Dursleys deliberately, knowing they'd mistreat me. I don't want that person to know I had help." Hermione looked troubled. "You think Dumbledore, I don't know who," Harry interrupted. "But I'm not taking chances." A moment of silence followed as his friends absorbed this. "Your secrets are safe with us, mate," Ron said finally, with unexpected seriousness. "Right, Hermione?" She nodded firmly. "Of course. But Harry, I want to learn what you're learning." Harry grinned. "I was hoping you'd say that." November arrived with bitter cold and the start of Quidditch season. Harry's first match approached, bringing both excitement and nervousness. While Elizabeth had taught him seeker strategies and techniques, actual gameplay would be his first real test. One evening, Harry visited his mother's portrait in its actual location, a quiet third-floor corridor featuring Hogwarts graduates from the 1970s. Nervous about the match? Lily asked, her painted green eyes so like his own. Harry nodded. A bit. Dad was such a great player. What if I mess up? You'll be wonderful, she assured him. James would be so proud just seeing you on the pitch, no matter what happens. Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of limping footsteps. Harry quickly ducked behind a suit of armor as Snape and Filch rounded the corner. Blasted thing, Snape was saying. How are you supposed to keep your eyes on all three heads at once? Harry's breath caught. 3 heads. Could they be talking about the forbidden third-floor corridor? After they passed, Harry hurried back to Gryffindor Tower where he found Ron and Hermione playing chess. He quickly recounted what he'd overheard. 3 heads, like a 3-headed dog? Hermione asked thoughtfully. Sounds like it, Harry agreed. And it's guarding something. Ron leaned forward eagerly. How do you know it's guarding something? Why else would Dumbledore keep a monster in a school? Harry reasoned. Remember his announcement at the start of term? The painful death awaiting anyone who visits the forbidden corridor. Hermione bit her lip. The day we arrived, Hagrid emptied a vault at Gringotts. The same day someone tried to rob a different vault. What if they're connected? Only one way to find out, Harry said determinedly. We need to see what's in that corridor. Under the invisibility cloak that night, the 3 friends crept to the forbidden third floor. A simple Alohomora opened the locked door, revealing exactly what they'd suspected, an enormous 3-headed dog filling the entire space, standing over a trapdoor. They retreated quickly before the awakening beast could attack, running all the way back to Gryffindor Tower. Did you see what it was standing on? Hermione gasped once they were safely inside. A trapdoor, Harry confirmed. It's guarding something underneath. But what? Ron wondered. Harry thought back to the small package Hagrid had removed from Gringotts, according to Hermione's observations. Something small but valuable enough to keep in a high-security vault and then bring to Hogwarts for protection. The mystery occupied their thoughts, but Harry had another resource his friends didn't, his portrait network. The next day between classes, he sought out Edmund's portrait near the library. A 3-headed dog guarding a trapdoor, Harry explained quietly. Any ideas what might be hidden at Hogwarts this year? Edmund stroked his painted beard thoughtfully. Cerberus-type guardians are typically used for extremely valuable magical artifacts. Given recent rumors of dark activity, I would investigate what powerful magical objects have disappeared from public knowledge recently. That evening in the room of requirement, Harry posed the same question to his gathered portrait mentors. Phineas looked troubled. The timing is concerning. Your arrival at Hogwarts coinciding with the transfer of a valuable artifact, it suggests possible manipulation. Elizabeth nodded grimly. Someone may be using the object as bait. For who? Harry asked, though he suspected the answer. For you, his mother's portrait said quietly. Or for whoever might be helping Voldemort return. A heavy silence followed her words. Nicholas Flamel, Godric Gryffindor's portrait said suddenly. Everyone turned to him. Dumbledore and Flamel have been corresponding extensively this past year, Godric explained. My portrait in the headmaster's office observed their communications. If something valuable is being protected at Hogwarts under Albus's personal supervision, the Philosopher's Stone would be a likely candidate. Harry's eyes widened. The stone that can turn metal to gold and produce the elixir of life. The very same, Godric confirmed. A prize that would be immensely valuable to anyone seeking to restore a broken body or spirit. Like Voldemort, Harry whispered. The next day, Harry shared this theory with Ron and Hermione, carefully framing it as a conclusion they'd reached together through research rather than portrait information. "It makes sense," Hermione agreed. "The Philosopher's Stone would be exactly the kind of object that needs Gringotts-level protection. And exactly what you know who would want if he's trying to come back," Ron added, shuddering. "The question is," Harry said, "who at Hogwarts might be helping him get it?" As November progressed, Harry divided his attention between Quidditch practice, classes, secret training in the Room of Requirement, and investigating the stone's protections with Ron and Hermione. His first Quidditch match arrived with perfect flying weather, though Harry's stomach churned with nerves as he mounted his Nimbus 2000. The game began well. Gryffindor scored first and Harry spotted the snitch early but lost it in the confusion. Then, without warning, his broom began bucking violently, attempting to throw him off. Harry clung desperately to the handle as the broomstick jerked and twisted beyond his control. From the stands, Hermione spotted Snape staring unblinkingly at Harry, muttering continuously. "He's jinxing the broom," she gasped, passing Ron her binoculars. Before Ron could respond, she disappeared, pushing through the crowd. Harry, meanwhile, drew on every flying technique Elizabeth had drilled into him. When the broom gave a particularly violent jerk, he executed a wandless sticking charm to maintain his grip, one of the first spells his portrait mentors had taught him. The broom continued bucking, but Harry couldn't be dislodged. Then, suddenly, the jinx broke. His broomstick stopped trying to throw him, returning to normal control. Below in the teacher's stands, Snape was stamping out blue flames on his robes while Quirrell sprawled headfirst into the row in front of him. Harry didn't waste the opportunity. Spotting a golden glint near the ground, he dived steeply, pulling up at the last possible second to avoid collision. In a move that drew gasps from the crowd, he stood balanced on his broomstick, reaching forward until his fingers closed around the snitch. Almost falling off, he held the golden ball aloft as the stadium erupted in cheers. Gryffindor had won, 170-60. Later, in Hagrid's hut, Harry, Ron, and Hermione discussed the match. "It was Snape," Ron insisted. Hermione saw him cursing your broomstick. "Rubbish," Hagrid said. "Why would Snape do something like that?" "I found out something about him," Harry said carefully. "He tried to get past the three-headed dog on Halloween. It bit him. We think he's trying to steal whatever it's guarding." Hagrid dropped his teapot. "How do you know about Fluffy?" "Fluffy?" Ron echoed incredulously. "Yeah, he's mine. Bought him off a Greek chappie I met in the pub last year. I lent him to Dumbledore to guard the," Hagrid caught himself. "The Philosopher's Stone?" Harry suggested innocently. Hagrid looked shocked. "How do you know about that?" "We figured it out," Hermione said quickly. "Nicholas Flamel is the only known maker of the Philosopher's Stone. It makes sense that's what needs such protection." Hagrid looked thoroughly disgruntled. "Now, listen to me, all three of ye. You're meddlin' in things that don't concern ye. You forget that dog, and you forget what it's guardin'. That's between Professor Dumbledore and Nicholas Flamel." As they walked back to the castle, Ron looked troubled. "If Snape's trying to steal the stone, we're in serious trouble." Harry wasn't convinced. "During the match, when my broom was jinxed, I caught a glimpse of Quirrell just before the jinx broke. He looked focused. Not scared at all." Hermione looked surprised. "You think Professor Quirrell was jinxing your broom? But he seems so harmless." "Sometimes the best disguise is appearing harmless," Harry said, recalling Phineas's lessons on strategy. "We should watch both of them." Christmas approached, bringing holiday decorations and thick snow to the castle grounds. When the vacation sign-up sheet circulated, Harry immediately added his name. Nothing could induce him to return to Privet Drive. Ron stayed too, while Hermione returned home to her parents. The day before she left, Harry took both friends to the Room of Requirement for the first time. "This is incredible," Hermione whispered as the room transformed into a perfect study space with the exact books they needed for holiday assignments. "It gets better," Harry said with a grin. "I'd like you to meet someone." He focused his thoughts, and a portrait frame appeared on the wall. Within moments, Lily Potter's painted face smiled at them. "Mum, these are my friends. Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger." Ron gaped openly while Hermione stepped forward with shining eyes. "Mrs. Potter, it's an honor to meet you." "Please, call me Lily," the portrait replied warmly. "Harry's told me so much about you both. I'm so glad he's found such wonderful friends." "You've been teaching Harry magic?" Hermione asked eagerly. Lily nodded. "Along with many other portraits. We've all contributed what we can." "Wicked," Ron breathed. "Can you teach us too?" "That's precisely why Harry brought you here," Lily smiled. "There's so much you three can learn together." Over the holidays, with the castle nearly empty, Harry and Ron spent hours in the room of requirement. Harry's portrait mentors guided them through spells, magical theory, and strategic thinking far beyond the first-year curriculum. Ron proved surprisingly adept at combat magic. "Your strategic mind gives you an advantage," Elizabeth told him after a particularly successful shield charm practice. "You see patterns in magical flow just as you do on the chessboard." Christmas morning brought unexpected joy when Harry discovered presents at the foot of his bed. From Hagrid, a hand-carved wooden flute. From Mrs. Weasley, a hand-knit emerald sweater and homemade fudge that moved Harry nearly to tears. From Hermione, a luxury eagle feather quill. The final package contained his father's invisibility cloak with an anonymous note claiming it was time it was returned to him. Harry immediately consulted Phineas's portrait about the handwriting. "Dumbledore," Phineas confirmed. "I'd recognize that script anywhere." That night, protected by the invisibility cloak, Harry explored the castle more boldly. He discovered the Mirror of Erist in an unused classroom, standing magnificent and mysterious with its strange inscription. When he gazed into it, his breath caught. His parents stood behind him, smiling proudly, surrounded by generations of Potters. His reflection showed not just who he was, but the entire legacy from which he'd come. For 3 nights, Harry returned to the mirror, bringing Ron once to confirm his friends saw something different. Ron's reflection showed him standing alone, head boy and Quidditch captain. On the 4th night, Dumbledore appeared beside him. "Back again, Harry." Harry started, nearly dropping the cloak. I didn't see you, sir." "Strange how nearsighted being invisible can make you," Dumbledore said mildly. "So, you, like hundreds before you, have discovered the delights of the Mirror of Erist. It shows us what we want?" Harry asked, pretending ignorance despite Phineas having already explained the mirror's function. "It shows us nothing more or less than the deepest desire of our hearts," Dumbledore corrected. "You, who have never known your family, see them standing around you. Ronald Weasley, who has always been overshadowed by his brothers, sees himself standing alone, the best of all of them." Harry nodded, wondering how Dumbledore knew about Ron's vision. "The mirror will be moved to a new home tomorrow, Harry, and I ask you not to go looking for it again. Men have wasted away before it, entranced by what they have seen, or been driven mad, not knowing if what it shows is real or even possible." "What do you see when you look in it?" Harry asked impulsively. I see myself holding a pair of thick, woolen socks." At Harry's skeptical look, Dumbledore continued, "One can never have enough socks. Another Christmas has come and gone and I didn't get a single pair. People will insist on giving me books." As Harry returned to his dormitory, he reflected on the encounter. Dumbledore had lied about what he saw in the mirror, that much was obvious. But more concerning was the headmaster's awareness of Harry's nighttime wanderings and his friend's private experience with the mirror. The old wizard was watching him closely. Harry would need to be even more careful about revealing his true abilities. When term resumed, Hermione returned full of enthusiasm after reading advanced magical theory books her parents had given her for Christmas. The trio resumed their normal routines, classes by day, occasional room of requirement training by night, and continued research into the stone. Harry's private portrait lessons intensified as well. Elizabeth and Godric focused on defensive techniques, anticipating potential confrontations if someone truly was after the stone. Disarming is essential, Godric insisted during one session. Before any complex spell, master Expelliarmus. A wizard without a wand is often a wizard defeated. Harry practiced the spell diligently until he could perform it with minimal wand movement and near-silent incantation. The red jet of light became more focused, more powerful with each attempt. Edmund's theoretical lessons turned to the properties of the Philosopher's Stone itself. Understanding what you're protecting is as important as knowing how to protect it, he explained. The stone's alchemical properties make it uniquely reactive to certain magical energies. Meanwhile, Harry continued observing both Snape and Quirrell. The potion's master remained hostile but consistent. Quirrell, however, displayed occasional inconsistencies in his stuttering pattern that raised Harry's suspicions further. In late January, Harry noticed Quirrell looking increasingly pale and frightened. After one defense lesson, he lingered behind until the classroom emptied. "P.P. Potter?" Quirrell stammered. Did you need something?" "Just a question about banshees, Professor," Harry said casually, studying the man closely. "Are you feeling all right, sir? You seem unwell lately." Something flashed behind Quirrell's eyes, annoyance, perhaps, before his usual fearful expression returned. "Just tired, my boy. Our research keeps me up." "Research on what?" Harry asked innocently. Quirrell's hand twitched toward his turban before he controlled the movement. "And nothing that would interest a first year." As Harry left the classroom, he noticed Quirrell's reflection in a polished shield on the wall. The professor's posture had straightened, his expression hardened into something entirely different from his usual fearful demeanor. Harry shared his observations with Ron and Hermione that evening. "His stutter comes and goes," Harry explained. "And sometimes when he thinks no one's watching, he moves differently, confidently." "That doesn't make him the one after the stone," Hermione pointed out. "Maybe he just has social anxiety around students." "Maybe," Harry conceded. "But remember, he was the one who announced the troll on Halloween, creating the perfect diversion while everyone was at the feast." Ron frowned. "But Snape was the one who got bitten by the dog. What if Snape was trying to stop Quirrell, not get the stone himself?" Harry suggested. Hermione looked thoughtful. "We need more evidence. Let's keep watching both of them." Evidence came sooner than expected. Walking across the grounds one afternoon, the trio spotted Snape cornering Quirrell at the edge of the Forbidden Forest. They crept closer to listen. "Have you found out how to get past that beast of Hagrid's yet?" Snape demanded. "BB but S. Severus, Quirrell stuttered. "You don't want me as your enemy, Quirrell," Snape threatened, stepping closer. I don't know what you know perfectly well what I mean. Your little bit of hocus pocus. I'm waiting." But I don't." "Very well," Snape cut in. "We'll have another little chat soon, when you've had time to think things over and decide where your loyalties lie." Snape strode away, leaving Quirrell looking terrified. "See?" Ron whispered as they retreated. "Snape's trying to force Quirrell to help him steal the stone." But Harry wasn't convinced. Or Snape suspects Quirrell and is trying to find out what he knows. That night, Harry consulted his portrait mentors again. "Quirrell's behavior is certainly suspicious," Phineas agreed. "Particularly if his mannerisms change when unobserved. The turban professor gives me an uneasy feeling," added a portrait Harry hadn't met before, a severe-looking witch with ancient Egyptian styling. "I am Nefertari, once court magician to pharaohs. I recognize the signs of possession when I see them." Harry looked alarmed. "Possession? You think something's controlling Quirrell?" Or someone, Nefertari said ominously. A fragmented soul can attach itself to a willing host. The implications chilled Harry. Voldemort? It would explain much, Elizabeth said grimly. If some remnant of the Dark Lord survived that night in Godric's Hollow, he would need a physical form to act in this world. And the Philosopher's Stone would give him a path to full resurrection, Edmund concluded. Harry's mother's portrait looked stricken. Harry, if this is true, you're in terrible danger. Voldemort would sense your presence, the child who defeated him. I need to tell Dumbledore, Harry decided. Phineas shook his head. Without evidence, the headmaster will dismiss your concerns as childish imagination. He believes you to be an ordinary first year with no special knowledge or abilities. Then we need evidence, Harry said determinedly. Something concrete that proves Quirrell is working for Voldemort. As winter yielded to spring, the trio focused on gathering evidence while preparing for their final exams. Hermione created color-coded study schedules for all three, while Harry taught them increasingly advanced defensive magic in the Room of Requirement. Ron mastered shield charms faster than Hermione, while she excelled at precision jinxes and counter curses. Harry pushed himself further, practicing with portrait mentors during private sessions to master spells well beyond first-year level. Your magical core is unusually developed for your age, observed Madame Wilkins, a healer's portrait from St. Mungo's. Likely a combination of your early wandless practice and your natural power. One evening in late April, the three friends were studying in the library when Hagrid shuffled past, hiding something behind his back. Curious, they investigated his section of the library after he left, finding he'd been researching dragon breeding. A visit to Hagrid's hut confirmed their suspicions. He had somehow acquired a dragon egg and was keeping it in his wooden house. Hagrid, you live in a wooden house, Hermione pointed out worriedly. But the gamekeeper wouldn't be swayed. When the egg hatched a Norwegian ridgeback, Hagrid named it Norbert and treated it like a pet despite its rapidly growing size and tendency to shoot sparks when hiccuping. We have to do something, Harry insisted after their third visit found Hagrid's curtains on fire. He'll get sacked if anyone finds out. Ron suggested contacting his brother Charlie, who worked with dragons in Romania. After exchanging letters, they arranged for Charlie's friends to collect Norbert from the astronomy tower at midnight the following Saturday. The dragon handoff went smoothly thanks to Harry's invisibility cloak and strategic planning, but as they descended the tower staircase afterward, a sudden light blinded them. Well, Filch whispered. We are in trouble. They'd forgotten the invisibility cloak at the top of the tower. McGonagall, in a tartan bathrobe and hairnet, was furious. Nothing gives students the right to walk around school at night, especially these days. 50 points from Gryffindor. Each. 150 points lost in one night put Gryffindor in last place for the House Cup. Harry, Ron, and Hermione became instant pariahs among their housemates. Even Quidditch couldn't distract from the bitter disappointment of teammates who now refused to speak to Harry except during practice. Their punishment included detention in the Forbidden Forest with Hagrid, tracking an injured unicorn. Harry and Malfoy, who'd been caught out of bed the same night, formed one search party while Hermione, Ron, and Hagrid formed another. Deep in the forest, Harry and Malfoy found the unicorn dead in a clearing, its silvery blood pooling on the ground. Before they could react, a hooded figure crawled across the forest floor and began drinking the unicorn's blood. Malfoy screamed and bolted. Harry remained frozen, a searing pain building in his scar as the hooded figure raised its head, silver blood dripping from its mouth. It moved toward him, then suddenly retreated as the sound of hooves approached. A centaur named Firenze arrived, offering Harry a ride back to safety. As they traveled, Firenze explained the significance of what they'd witnessed. Only one who has nothing to lose, and everything to gain, would commit such a crime, the centaur told him. Drinking unicorn blood will keep you alive even if you are an inch from death, but at a terrible price. You have slain something pure and defenseless to save yourself, and you will have but a half-life, a cursed life, from the moment the blood touches your lips. But who would be that desperate? Harry asked, though he already suspected the answer. Can you think of no one who has waited many years to return to power? Who has clung to life, awaiting their chance? Harry's blood ran cold. Voldemort. When he shared this encounter with Ron and Hermione, their fears crystallized into certainty. It has to be Quirrell, Harry insisted. Voldemort is possessing him somehow, using him to get the stone. Hermione looked terrified but nodded. We need to tell someone. Professor McGonagall, she won't believe us, Ron pointed out. We need Dumbledore. Harry agreed. We'll go to him tomorrow. With everything we've seen, he has to listen. But when morning came, they discovered Dumbledore had been called urgently to London by the Ministry of Magic. He's gone. Harry repeated, a sense of dread filling him. Now. Professor Dumbledore is a very great wizard, Potter, he has many demands on his time, McGonagall began. But this is important, Harry insisted. Something you have to say is more important than the Ministry of Magic. Harry took a chance. It's about the Philosopher's Stone. The books McGonagall was carrying crashed to the floor. How do you know? She spluttered. Professor, we know, that someone's going to try and steal the stone. We've got to talk to Professor Dumbledore. She eyed them with a mixture of shock and suspicion. Professor Dumbledore will be back tomorrow. I don't know how you found out about the stone, but rest assured, no one can possibly steal it, it's too well protected. As she walked away, Harry turned to his friends. It's happening tonight. With Dumbledore gone, Quirrell will make his move. But we can't get past Fluffy ourselves, Hermione protested. Music puts him to sleep, Harry said. Hagrid mentioned it accidentally when we were asking about the dragon. We just need to bring a flute or something. Are you mental? Ron hissed. We can't go after the stone ourselves. We have to, Harry insisted. If Voldemort gets the stone, he comes back to full power. He murdered my parents, Ron. He'll start another war. Thousands will die. Hermione looked torn. We should try Professor Snape. If our theory is right and he's been trying to stop Quirrell, he'd never believe us, Harry said. We have to do this ourselves. That evening, they attempted to reach the third-floor corridor but found Neville blocking their way in the common room, determined to prevent them losing more house points. I won't let you, he said, raising his fists. I'll fight you. Neville, Harry said desperately. This is important. When Neville refused to budge, Hermione reluctantly raised her wand. Petrificus totalis. Neville's arms and legs snapped together, his body rigid as he fell to the floor. I'm so sorry, Hermione whispered as they stepped over him. Beneath the invisibility cloak, they reached the third-floor corridor without detection. The door was already ajar when they arrived. Quirrell's already been through, Harry whispered. We're too late to stop him getting in, but we might still prevent him from getting the stone. Inside, Fluffy growled at their scent but couldn't see them under the cloak. A harp played softly in the corner, Quirrell's work, keeping the beast drowsy. We need to move the paw from the trapdoor, Harry instructed. Together they pushed the massive paw aside and opened the trapdoor, revealing a dark drop below. I'll go first, Harry said. If anything happens to me, go straight to the Ollery and send Hedwig to Dumbledore. Before his friends could protest, Harry lowered himself into the hole and let go. He fell through cold, damp air, landing with a muffled thump on something soft. Ron and Hermione followed moments later. Lucky this plant thing's here, Ron commented. Lucky? Hermione shrieked. Look at you. Tendrils of the plant had begun wrapping around their legs. Harry recognized it immediately from his herbology lessons with Professor Sprout's portrait. It's Devil's Snare, he shouted. Like fire or light. Hermione quickly produced bluebell flames from her wand, causing the plant to retreat. They dropped through to a stone passage below. The next chamber contained flying keys and broomsticks. Harry, using his seeker skills, quickly captured the correct key for the door despite its damaged wing suggesting Quirrell had already used it. Beyond that lay a giant chessboard, Ron's moment to shine. He directed them as pieces in the life-size chess game, sacrificing himself in a brilliant play that left him unconscious but gave Harry and Hermione checkmate. After ensuring Ron wasn't seriously injured, they continued to the next challenge, a logic puzzle involving potions and fire barriers. Hermione solved the riddle quickly. The smallest bottle will get you forward, to the stone. Harry looked at the tiny bottle. There's only enough for one person. Which one gets you back through the purple flames? Hermione pointed to a rounded bottle at the right end of the line. You drink that, Harry said firmly. Go back, get Ron, grab brooms from the flying key room, and get out. Send Hedwig to Dumbledore. I'll try to hold Quirrell off until help comes. Hermione threw her arms around him suddenly. Harry, you're a great wizard, you know. Not as good as you, Harry said, embarrassed. Me? Books and cleverness. There are more important things, friendship and bravery. Be careful, Harry. They each drank their respective potions. Hermione shuddered as hers took effect, then walked back through the purple flames. Harry took a deep breath, swallowed his potion, and stepped forward through the black flames. He emerged into the final chamber to find exactly who he expected, Professor Quirrell, standing calmly before the mirror of Eriste. You, Harry said without surprise. Quirrell smiled, no trace of his stutter remaining. Me. I wondered if I'd be seeing you here, Potter. Where's your master? Harry asked boldly. I know he's with you. Quirrell's eyes widened slightly. Observant child. Yes, the Dark Lord shares my body. Ever since I met him in the forests of Albania, where I foolishly thought myself strong enough to resist his influence. And now you're trying to steal the stone for him. Precisely. Quirrell turned back to the mirror. I see the stone, I'm presenting it to my master, but I cannot get it. Is it inside the mirror? Should I break it? A high, cold voice spoke, seemingly from Quirrell himself. Use the boy. Use the boy. Quirrell rounded on Harry. Come here, Potter. Look in the mirror and tell me what you see. Harry approached slowly, mind racing. The mirror showed one's deepest desire. Right now, his deepest desire was to find the stone before Quirrell did. If he looked, would the mirror reveal its location? Standing before the glass, Harry saw his reflection smile and reach into its pocket, pulling out a blood-red stone. The reflection winked and put the stone back, and as it did, Harry felt something heavy drop into his real pocket. Somehow, incredibly, he had gotten the stone. Well? Quirrell demanded impatiently. What do you see? Harry drew on every occlumency lesson Phineas had given him, constructing a quick but plausible lie. I see myself shaking hands with Dumbledore. I've won the House Cup. Quirrell cursed, pushing him aside. He lies. He lies. The high voice spoke again. Let me speak to him, face to face. Master, you are not strong enough. I have strength enough, for this. Harry watched in horror as Quirrell unwrapped his turban. Where the back of his head should have been was another face, chalk white with glaring red eyes and slits for nostrils, like a snake. Harry Potter. It whispered. See what I have become. Mere shadow and vapor. I have form only when I can share another's body. Unicorn blood has strengthened me, but once I have the elixir of life, I will be able to create a body of my own. Now, give me the stone in your pocket. Harry stepped backward. Every lesson from his portrait mentors crystallized into action. His hand moved with practiced precision, drawing his wand faster than any normal first year could. Expelliarmus! He shouted, channeling all his power into the spell. The force of it caught Quirrell by surprise, sending his wand flying and knocking him backward. "Seize him!" Voldemort screamed. Quirrell lunged forward, hands closing around Harry's throat. Immediately, searing pain scorched through Harry's scar, but something even more unexpected happened. Quirrell's hands began to blister and burn where they touched Harry's skin. "Master! My hands!" Quirrell pulled away, looking in horror at his blistering fingers. "Then kill him, fool!" Voldemort shrieked. As Quirrell raised his hand for a wandless curse, Harry acted instinctively, throwing himself forward and pressing his hands against Quirrell's face. The professor screamed in agony as his skin burned and blistered beneath Harry's touch. Harry held on, understanding somehow that Quirrell couldn't bear to touch him. The pain in his scar built to an unbearable crescendo as Quirrell's screams echoed in the chamber. He heard Voldemort's voice commanding, "Kill him! Kill him!" and then someone calling his name, "Harry! Harry!" The world faded to blackness as Harry collapsed, the stone still clutched safely in his pocket, the knowledge of victory the last thought before unconsciousness claimed him. Harry woke in the hospital wing, sunlight streaming through the windows. Dumbledore stood beside his bed, smiling down at him. "Good afternoon, Harry," the headmaster said gently. Harry's thoughts immediately cleared. "Sir. The stone." Quirrell was trying to, "Calm yourself, dear boy. Quirrell does not have the stone." "Then who does?" "The stone has been destroyed. My friend Nicholas and I had a little chat, and we agreed it was best all around." Harry processed this. "So Voldemort can't use it to come back?" "No. But Voldemort has many other means of returning. He is still out there somewhere, perhaps looking for another body to share." Harry nodded, then asked the question that had been burning in him since the chamber. "Sir, how was I able to get the stone out of the mirror?" Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. "Ah, one of my more brilliant ideas. Only someone who wanted to find the stone, find it, not use it, could get it from the mirror. Now, enough questions. Your friends will be anxious to see you." After Dumbledore left, Harry reflected on everything that had happened. His portrait mentors had prepared him well, but the confrontation with Voldemort had revealed something unexpected. His mother's protection still lived within his very skin, preventing Voldemort from touching him. He would have much to discuss with his portrait friends once he returned to the dormitory. 3 days later, Harry attended the end-of-year feast in the Great Hall. The room was decked in Slytherin green and silver to celebrate their 7th consecutive House Cup championship. Harry's adventure had happened so secretly that only Ron and Hermione knew the full story. The rest of the school just knew something had happened to Quirrell. Dumbledore arrived and the room fell silent. "Another year gone," the headmaster said cheerfully. "Now, as I understand it, the House Cup needs awarding, and the points stand thus: in 4th place, Gryffindor, with 312 points, in 3rd, Hufflepuff, with 352, Ravenclaw has 426 and Slytherin, 472. Slytherin erupted in cheers. Harry saw Draco Malfoy banging his goblet on the table. Yes, well done, Slytherin," said Dumbledore. "However, recent events must be taken into account." The room went very still. "First, to Mr. Ronald Weasley, for the best played game of chess Hogwarts has seen in many years, I award Gryffindor 50 points. Ron went purple in the face as Percy could be heard telling other prefects, "My brother, you know. My youngest brother." Second, to Miss Hermione Granger, for the use of cool logic in the face of fire, I award Gryffindor 50 points. Hermione buried her face in her arms, overcome with emotion. Third, to Mr. Harry Potter, said Dumbledore, for pure nerve and outstanding courage, I award Gryffindor 60 points. The din was deafening. Gryffindor now tied with Slytherin at 472 points. Dumbledore raised his hand and the room gradually fell silent. There are all kinds of courage, said Dumbledore, smiling. It takes a great deal of bravery to stand up to our enemies, but just as much to stand up to our friends. I therefore award 10 points to Mr. Neville Longbottom. The explosion of noise that followed was like nothing Harry had ever heard. Neville, white with shock, disappeared under a pile of people hugging him. Which means, Dumbledore called over the applause, we need a little change of decoration. He clapped his hands, and the green hangings became scarlet and the silver became gold, the huge Slytherin serpent vanished and a towering Gryffindor lion took its place. That night, Harry visited the Room of Requirement one last time before summer holidays. His portrait mentors gathered to hear the complete story of his confrontation with Quirrell and Voldemort. Your mother's protection is remarkable, Edmund marveled. Love magic is among the most powerful and least understood branches of magical theory. Voldemort will return, Phineas warned gravely. This was merely his first attempt. You must be prepared. We'll help you prepare, Elizabeth promised. This summer and beyond. His mother's portrait smiled at him with fierce pride. You were so brave, Harry. Your father and I couldn't be prouder. Will I still be able to see you over the summer? Harry asked anxiously. At the Dursleys? Our connection to you remains, Godric assured him. Though the distance will make it more difficult, we'll visit as we can. As Harry prepared to leave, Phineas stopped him with a raised hand. One final matter before you go. Dumbledore will be watching you more closely after these events. He suspects something unusual about your abilities. I was careful, Harry protested. Nevertheless, he is perceptive. Your knowledge of the stone, your survival against Quirrell, these raise questions. Next year, you must be even more cautious about revealing your true capabilities. Harry nodded solemnly. I understand. The next day, exam results arrived. Harry and Ron passed with good marks, while Hermione, naturally, achieved the best grades of the first years. Soon they were boarding the Hogwarts Express back to London, the castle shrinking in the distance as the train pulled away. You must come and stay this summer, Ron said as they approached King's Cross. Both of you, I'll send an owl. Thanks, Harry said. I'll need something to look forward to. As they crossed back through the barrier to the Muggle world, Harry spotted Uncle Vernon waiting with a purple face, mustache twitching in anger. Aunt Petunia and Dudley stood beside him, looking terrified of Harry in his wizard robes. Busy year? Vernon sneered. Very, Harry replied with a small smile. I learned quite a lot. More than anyone realized, he thought, as he followed the Dursleys toward the car park. With his portrait mentors, his growing magical abilities, and his new friends, Harry Potter was no longer the helpless boy in the cupboard. Whatever challenges his second year might bring, he would be ready. Chapter 3, The Stone and the Serpent. Summer at Privet Drive felt like stepping back in time. After a year of magic, friends, and adventure, Harry found himself once again trapped in the mundane prison of the Dursleys' home. The only difference? This time he had his wand hidden under a loose floorboard, schoolbooks concealed in his wardrobe, and a much stronger sense of who he truly was. 3 weeks and not a single letter from your friends, Uncle Vernon sneered over breakfast, mustache twitching with satisfaction. Seems they've forgotten all about you. Harry kept his expression neutral while silently counting backward from 10, an anger management technique Elizabeth had taught him. Looks that way, he said with practiced indifference. What Vernon didn't know was that Harry's friends hadn't forgotten him at all. Hedwig regularly delivered letters at night through his window, which Harry kept carefully hidden. More importantly, his portrait mentors still visited, though less frequently and with hazier images than at Hogwarts. That evening, Harry sat cross-legged on his bed as a familiar face shimmered into existence on his wall. The connection grows weaker with distance, Phineas Black complained, his portrait looking somewhat translucent. Maintaining this link requires considerable magical effort. I'm just glad you can still reach me, Harry said earnestly. The Dursleys locked away all my schoolbooks. Without you, I'd have no way to practice. Speaking of practice, came Elizabeth Burke's voice as her portrait materialized beside Phineas, we must continue your occlumency training. Dumbledore's interest in you has grown. Your mind must be impenetrable. For the next hour, Elizabeth guided Harry through advanced mental defense techniques. The barriers in his mind grew stronger daily, walls of thought and memory that would protect his secrets from magical intrusion. Excellent progress, Elizabeth approved as Harry successfully repelled her simulated mental probe. You've developed shields that would challenge most adult wizards. Harry smiled tiredly. Has there been any news from Hogwarts? Nothing significant, Phineas reported. Dumbledore has been researching unusual magical connections to the castle. We believe he's investigating your affinity with the portraits. Harry's stomach tightened. Does he suspect? He knows something is unusual about you, Elizabeth said carefully. Your performance against Quirrell revealed abilities beyond a typical first year. He's curious, not suspicious, yet. A sudden commotion from downstairs interrupted them. Harry heard Uncle Vernon's angry voice, followed by unfamiliar voices responding. Someone's here, Harry whispered, moving to his door. The portraits disappeared as Harry listened intently. Absolutely not. Vernon was shouting. We never agreed to visitors. The boy isn't receiving anyone. I assure you, Mr. Dursley, came a calm, measured voice Harry recognized instantly, this is a matter of some importance. Harry's heart raced. Dumbledore. At Privet Drive. He quickly checked his room for any evidence of his secret studies, then hurried downstairs. In the living room stood Albus Dumbledore, resplendent in midnight blue robes spangled with silver stars. Aunt Petunia cowered in the corner while Dudley hid behind an armchair, hands clamped over his massive bottom. Uncle Vernon stood toe-to-toe with the headmaster, face purple with rage yet unable to fully mask his fear. Ah, Harry, Dumbledore smiled. There you are. I hope you don't mind my unexpected visit. Not at all, Professor, Harry said carefully, maintaining the respectful but ordinary student persona he'd cultivated. Is something wrong? Nothing dire, Dumbledore assured him, though I do need to speak with you privately on a matter of some importance. Vernon sputtered incoherently, but one serene look from Dumbledore silenced him. Perhaps your room would afford us the privacy we need? Dumbledore suggested. Panic flared through Harry. What if traces of his portrait communications remained visible? But he couldn't refuse without looking suspicious. Of course, sir, he said, leading the way upstairs. Entering Harry's room, Dumbledore looked around with polite interest. To Harry's relief, no sign of the portraits remained. A rather sparse living arrangement, Dumbledore commented, conjuring a squashy purple armchair and sitting down. He gestured for Harry to take the bed. It's better than the cupboard, Harry said before he could stop himself. Something flashed in Dumbledore's eyes, sadness? Guilt? It vanished too quickly to identify. Indeed. Now, Harry, I've come regarding a matter of security. Lord Voldemort's attempt to secure the Philosopher's Stone, while thwarted, indicates he remains determined to return. While the ancient protections your mother provided continue to shield you, additional precautions seem prudent. Harry nodded cautiously. What kind of precautions? I've established new wards around Privet Drive, magical barriers that will alert me to any dark presence approaching. Dumbledore studied Harry over his half-moon spectacles. I've also arranged for monitoring of underage magic in this area to be, shall we say, less sensitive. Harry blinked in surprise. You're allowing me to use magic outside school? Let's call it a reasonable preparation for unexpected dangers, Dumbledore smiled slightly. Nothing excessive, mind you. Simple defensive spells if needed. The Ministry need not know. This unexpected concession puzzled Harry. Why would Dumbledore suddenly grant him this freedom? Thank you, sir, he said carefully. That's very considerate. There is, however, something I've been wondering about, Dumbledore continued, his tone conversational but his eyes sharp. Your confrontation with Professor Quirrell revealed remarkable magical aptitude for a first-year student. Your teachers report consistently good but deliberately restrained performance in classes. Most curious. Harry's occlumency shield snapped into place. I've always been able to do things when I really needed to, he said, offering a partial truth. Like when I ended up on the school roof escaping Dudley. It just happens. Indeed. Dumbledore leaned forward slightly. And your exceptional wandless control of magic before receiving your Hogwarts letter? The Ministry detected numerous instances of directed magic around you, far more controlled than typical accidental bursts. Harry's pulse quickened. How much did Dumbledore know? I didn't have anyone to tell me I couldn't do those things, Harry said with calculated innocence. Maybe that made a difference. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. Perhaps so. The limitations we place on young wizards often become self-fulfilling prophecies. He stood, vanishing the armchair. Well, I've taken enough of your time. Do enjoy the remainder of your summer, Harry. I believe the Weasleys are planning to invite you to stay soon. At the bedroom door, Dumbledore paused. One last curiosity, have you ever noticed anything unusual about the portraits at Hogwarts? Any that seem to pay you particular attention? Harry's face remained impassive while his mind raced. Not really, sir. They all move and talk, which was amazing at first, but I'm used to it now. Indeed, Dumbledore nodded slowly. How quickly we adapt to wonders. With that cryptic remark, he departed. The moment Harry heard the front door close, Phineas's portrait reappeared. He knows something, Harry whispered urgently. But not everything, Phineas reassured him. His questions suggest theories, not certainties. Your responses were appropriately vague. Why would he allow me to use magic outside school? Elizabeth's portrait materialized, looking troubled. He's testing you. Watching to see what you do with freedom. Be exceedingly careful, Harry. Use only the most basic magic if any. Anything advanced will confirm his suspicions. Harry nodded grimly. The game of secrecy had just become more complicated. 3 days later, Harry woke to the sound of a car engine outside his window. Peering through the curtains, he spotted an old turquoise Ford Anglia hovering in midair with Ron Weasley grinning from the back seat. The Weasley rescue operation went surprisingly smoothly. Fred and George removed the bars from Harry's window, helped him pack his trunk, and spirited him away into the night sky while the Dursleys slept on, oblivious. The burrow was everything Harry had imagined from Ron's descriptions, a magical home full of warmth and barely controlled chaos. Mrs. Weasley alternated between scolding her sons for the flying car escapade and stuffing Harry with enough food to put some meat on those bones. For the next few weeks, Harry experienced normal wizarding family life for the first time. He played Quidditch in the orchard with Ron, Fred, and George. He helped degnome the garden, flinging the potato-headed creatures over the fence. He watched in fascination as magical chores completed themselves around the busy household. Most nights, Harry sneaked away to an unused shed where his portrait mentors could visit without being discovered. Their sessions continued, advanced spell work, dueling techniques, and magical theory beyond anything taught at Hogwarts. Your wand work has improved significantly, Edmund Gamp noted during one such session. Your spells show greater precision and power conservation. The Weasleys' home magic helps mask any trace of your practice, Phineas added. But remember Dumbledore's warning, the Ministry still monitors for excessive magic. Harry nodded, wiping sweat from his brow after successfully conjuring a flock of canaries, a sixth-year charm. I'm only using my wand here in the shed with you. Around the others, I'm just regular Harry. The visit to Diagon Alley proved eventful, marked by a chance encounter with Lucius Malfoy and his son in Flourish and Blots. Harry watched carefully as Malfoy Sr. slipped something into Ginny Weasley's cauldron during a scuffle with Mr. Weasley. Later, in his room at the Burrow, Harry described the incident to Edmund's portrait. Most concerning, the theoretical magician frowned. Lucius Malfoy was a known Death Eater who claimed imperious influence after the war. Any object he deliberately plants warrants investigation. I'll try to check Ginny's schoolbooks tomorrow, Harry promised. But the opportunity never came. Between Mrs. Weasley's cleaning frenzy and last-minute packing, Harry couldn't find a moment alone with Ginny's belongings. Before he knew it, they were rushing for platform 9 3/4. The barrier's refusal to let Harry and Ron through seemed like a minor inconvenience at first. Harry immediately recognized something magical was blocking them. The wall felt solid rather than allowing passage to the magical platform. The barrier sealed itself, he told Ron. What do we do? Ron looked frantically at the clock. The train leaves in 1 minute. Harry considered his options. His portrait mentors had taught him several location jump spells similar to apparition, but using such advanced magic in public would immediately alert both the Ministry and Dumbledore. Let's wait by the car, he suggested. Your parents will come back once they realize we're not on the train. Ron's eyes lit up with a different idea. The car. Dad's car can fly, we could fly to Hogwarts. Harry shook his head firmly. Too risky. We'd be seen by muggles, break about 50 wizarding laws, and probably crash somewhere. Let's just wait. Ron looked disappointed but nodded. 20 minutes later, Mrs. Weasley came rushing back through the barrier, frantic with worry. Oh, thank goodness, she cried, pulling them both into a bone-crushing hug. Arthur's contacting the school now. We'll have to apparate you there instead. Crisis averted, they arrived at Hogsmeade Station via side-along apparition with Mr. and Mrs. Weasley, then took a carriage up to the castle. They slipped into the Great Hall just as the first years arrived for sorting, earning a curious look from Professor McGonagall but avoiding any significant trouble. Harry caught Dumbledore watching him thoughtfully throughout the feast. The headmaster's expression revealed nothing, but Harry sensed calculation behind those twinkling blue eyes. Later that night, safely behind his bed curtains, Harry pulled out the portrait map Phineas had given him the previous year. His mentor portraits had relocated to frames closer to Gryffindor Tower, making communication easier. With a whispered activation phrase, the map showed him their current locations. Checking that his dormmates were asleep, Harry slipped from the room under his invisibility cloak. He needed to consult his mentors about Lucius Malfoy's suspicious behavior and the sealed barrier at King's Cross. Both incidents suggested something dangerous was brewing at Hogwarts, again. Classes resumed with the usual excitement. Gilderoy Lockhart, their new defense against the dark arts professor, proved spectacularly incompetent despite his fame. His first lesson involved releasing Cornish pixies that wreaked havoc until Hermione froze them with a simple immobility charm. Utter fraud, Elizabeth sniffed when Harry described Lockhart's class in the room of requirement that evening. His books contain spellwork that contradicts fundamental magical principles. Focus on self-study for defense this year, Godric Gryffindor advised from his portrait. I suggest combat applications of charms as a starting point. Harry nodded, making notes in a journal. What about the blocked barrier and Malfoy's behavior? Are they connected? Possibly, Phineas said. The barrier interference suggests house elf magic. Very distinct magical signature, often used for sealing entrances. A house elf? Harry frowned. Why would a house elf block the barrier? Perhaps to prevent your return to Hogwarts, Edmund suggested. If someone believes you're in danger here. Harry's mind flashed to Malfoy's sneering face in Diagon Alley. Or if someone wants to cause trouble and doesn't want me interfering again. The mystery deepened a week later when Harry heard a chilling voice while serving detention with Lockhart. Come to me. Let me rip you. Let me tear you. Let me kill you. The voice, cold and murderous, seemed to move through the walls themselves. Yet Lockhart gave no indication of hearing it. When Harry described this to his portrait mentors, they reacted with immediate concern. A voice no one else can hear is deeply troubling, Helena Ravenclaw said gravely. In magical environments, it typically indicates either mental influence or Parseltongue finished Salazar Slytherin's portrait, which had recently begun appearing during Harry's sessions. The founder's presence had surprised everyone, including the other portrait mentors. Parseltongue? Harry repeated. Snake language? Salazar nodded, his painted eyes gleaming. The ability to communicate with serpents. Extremely rare, usually hereditary within certain bloodlines, most notably, my own. Harry went cold. But I'm not descended from Slytherin. I'm a Potter. Gryffindor mentioned my family descends partially from his line. Magical abilities can transfer through unusual means, Edmund said carefully. Your connection to Voldemort the night he attempted to kill you, some residual magical exchange could have occurred. Harry processed this disturbing possibility. So the voice I heard was likely a snake, Salazar confirmed. A very large one, moving through the castle. But what kind of snake could move unseen through Hogwarts? Harry wondered. The portraits exchanged significant glances. There is a legend, Helena began hesitantly, of a chamber built by Salazar before he left Hogwarts. A hidden chamber containing a monster, Salazar finished. The Chamber of Secrets is no legend. I created it as a final defense for the school, housing a creature that only my true heir could control. Harry stared at the founder's portrait. What kind of creature? A basilisk, Salazar stated flatly. The king of serpents. Its gaze kills instantly, its venom dissolves all it touches, its lifespan extends centuries. The room fell silent as Harry absorbed this revelation. If the chamber has been opened, Phineas said grimly, every student at Hogwarts is in deadly danger. We must locate the entrance immediately, Elizabeth insisted. Salazar shook his head. Not so simple. The chamber's entrance is designed to remain hidden except to those who speak Parseltongue. Even I cannot reveal its location from within a portrait. Then I'll need to find it myself, Harry said determinedly. Before anyone gets hurt. Start with the castle's lowest levels, Salazar advised. Plumbing and drainage systems would provide ideal pathways for a basilisk. Harry nodded, already mapping search strategies in his mind. What about protection from its gaze? Indirect sight, Edmund suggested. Reflections, shadows, or filtered views negate the killing effect, though they can still petrify. And Malfoy's behavior in Diagon Alley? Hermione asked. Could he have passed something that opens the chamber? The Malfoys have long claimed distant connection to Slytherin's line, Phineas noted. While unlikely they possess true hereditary claim, they might have acquired an artifact capable of controlling the chamber's guardian. The implications were chilling. Harry now faced not just identifying the chamber's location but potentially confronting both a basilisk and whoever had unleashed it. The first attack came on Halloween night. Harry, Ron, and Hermione were returning from nearly headless Nick's Death Day party when Harry heard the voice again, cold, murderous, and moving upward through the walls. It's going to kill someone. Harry shouted, racing up the stairs with Ron and Hermione close behind. They rounded the corner to find a horrific scene. Foot-high words gleamed on the wall, written in what looked like blood, the Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air, beware. Beneath the message hung Mrs. Norris, Filch's cat, stiff as a board and seemingly dead. Students flooded the corridor moments later, returning from the Halloween feast. Silence fell as they spotted the scene, broken only when Draco Malfoy shouted, "Enemies of the air, beware. You'll be next, mudbloods." Filch's arrival, followed by teachers, created chaos. Dumbledore detached Mrs. Norris from the torch bracket, announced she was merely petrified, not dead, and dismissed the students. "Except you three," he added, nodding to Harry, Ron, and Hermione. In Lockhart's nearby office, they explained finding the scene, carefully omitting Harry's ability to hear the basilisk. When finally dismissed, they hurried to an empty classroom to talk privately. "It's starting," Harry said grimly. "The chamber's been opened. But who's the heir of Slytherin? Ron wondered. Malfoy's the obvious suspect, Harry replied. But we need proof. Hermione looked thoughtful. There might be a way, but it would be difficult, dangerous, and break about 50 school rules. The Polyjuice potion, Harry guessed immediately. Hermione's eyes widened. How did you know? Harry caught himself. Polyjuice wasn't taught until 6th year. I read ahead sometimes. Hermione looked suspicious but continued. Yes, Polyjuice. It transforms you into someone else for an hour. We could become Slytherins and question Malfoy directly. Brilliant, Ron agreed. But where do we get the recipe? Most Patenti potions in the restricted section, Hermione said. We'd need a teacher's permission. Lockhart, Harry suggested. He'll sign anything put in front of him. Their plan proceeded smoothly. With Lockhart's oblivious signature, they obtained the book and began gathering ingredients. The potion would take a month to brew, a month during which the basilisk might strike again. Harry couldn't wait. That night, he slipped out under his invisibility cloak to begin searching the castle's lowest levels as Salazar had suggested. The dungeons yielded nothing unusual. Harry methodically checked bathrooms and plumbing access points throughout the lower floors, listening intently for any hint of Parseltongue. His portrait map guided him safely around patrolling prefects and professors. On the 2nd floor, he paused outside the girls' bathroom where the first message had appeared. Something drew him inside despite the out of order sign. Who's there? Came a mournful voice as he entered. A ghost of a young girl with thick glasses and pigtails floated near the sinks. Just me, Harry said, removing his cloak. I'm Harry. Oh, a boy in the girls' bathroom, the ghost giggled. How scandalous. I'm Myrtle. Moaning Myrtle, they call me. Harry approached carefully. Hello, Myrtle. I'm looking into some Hogwarts history. This bathroom seems significant somehow. Myrtle preened slightly at his interest. Well, it is where I died. Harry's attention sharpened. You died here? When? 50 years ago, Myrtle said with morbid satisfaction. In this very stall. I saw big yellow eyes by that sink, and then I died. Yellow eyes. A sink. Harry moved to examine the circle of sinks in the bathroom center. One tap stood out, a small snake was engraved on its side. This sink, Harry murmured, has it ever worked? Never, Myrtle confirmed. It's been broken as long as I remember. Harry studied the tiny snake carving, then made a decision. Focusing on the image, he imagined it alive and moving. Open, he commanded. Nothing happened. He tried again, concentrating harder, but English words continued emerging from his mouth. He needed to speak Parseltongue, but how? Closing his eyes, Harry recalled the basilisk's voice, its cold, hissing quality. He focused on that sound, that sensation, then opened his eyes and stared at the snake carving. Open, he tried again, but this time a strange hissing sound escaped his lips. The sink began to move. It sank out of sight, revealing a large pipe wide enough for a person to slide down, or for a massive serpent to emerge from. Harry stared at the dark opening, heart pounding. He'd found the Chamber of Secrets. Myrtle, how exactly did you die? He asked, not taking his eyes off the pipe. I was crying in the stall because Olive Hornby was teasing me about my glasses, Myrtle sniffed. I heard someone come in speaking funny, a different language. When I opened the door to tell them to go away, I saw those yellow eyes by the sink, and then, nothing. Did you see who opened the chamber? Myrtle shook her transparent head. All I remember is the eyes. Harry nodded, memorizing the location. He wouldn't enter alone, not yet. He needed more information, more preparation, before confronting a basilisk. Thank you, Myrtle. You've been incredibly helpful, he said, covering himself with the invisibility cloak again. I might come back with questions later, if that's all right. Myrtle looked pleasantly surprised at being thanked. Any time. It gets lonely being dead. Harry sealed the chamber entrance with another hissed command, then hurried back to Gryffindor Tower. He needed to consult his portrait mentors immediately. The entrance in a girl's bathroom, Elizabeth mused when Harry reported his discovery the next morning. Ingenious in its unexpectedness. And Myrtle was killed during the chamber's previous opening, Edmund added. This confirms the timeline. 50 years ago matches records of unexplained attacks that suddenly ceased. The question remains, Phineas said, who is controlling the basilisk now? Harry described Lucius Malfoy's suspicious behavior in Flourish and Blots again. Could he have given someone an artifact that allows them to command the basilisk without being Slytherin's true heir? Possible, Salazar's portrait acknowledged. The basilisk responds to Parseltongue, but certain magical objects could compel it to obey specific commands. We need to determine who received Malfoy's planted item, Harry decided. And prepare a way to neutralize the basilisk without killing it. Without killing it? Phineas raised an eyebrow. A curious priority. It's not the basilisk's fault it's being used this way, Harry argued. Salazar created it to protect Hogwarts, not attack students. Salazar looked strangely approving. An unexpected perspective from a Gryffindor. Roosters, Godric Gryffindor interjected. The crow of a rooster is fatal to a basilisk. Hagrid mentioned recently that something's been killing his roosters, now we know why. But I don't want to kill it if I can avoid it, Harry insisted. There is another way, Helena Ravenclaw said quietly. A sleeping draught potent enough for a basilisk would render it harmless temporarily. My mother developed such a formula for controlling magical serpents. Can you teach me to brew it? Harry asked. Helena nodded. It requires rare ingredients, but the Room of Requirement should be able to provide them. Over the next week, Harry divided his time between classes, the polyjuice preparation with Ron and Hermione, and secret brewing sessions for the basilisk sleeping draught. The potion required precise timing and rare components like powdered erumpent horn and sphinx whiskers. Meanwhile, tension built throughout the school. Rumors about the chamber and the heir of Slytherin dominated conversations. Justin Finch Fletchley avoided Harry after a classroom incident where Harry accidentally revealed his Parseltongue ability while stopping a snake from attacking the Hufflepuff boy. People think you're the heir now, Ron reported grimly after overhearing corridor gossip. Let them, Harry shrugged. It might make the real culprit careless if they think someone else is getting blamed. The polyjuice potion neared completion as December brought snow to the castle grounds. Harry stored the basilisk sleeping draught in spelled vials that would break on impact, releasing a gaseous version of the potion that would affect the serpent through respiration rather than ingestion. Then disaster struck. Colin Creevey, a first-year Gryffindor, was found petrified one night, his camera melted from the inside. He must have seen the basilisk through his camera lens, Hermione whispered when they heard the news. That's why he's petrified instead of dead. The attack accelerated their plans. The polyjuice potion was ready by Christmas, when most students had left for the holidays. Harry, Ron, and Hermione remained, along with the Weasleys and, notably, Malfoy and his cronies. On Christmas morning, they executed their plan. Crabbe and Goyle were easily subdued with drugged cupcakes. Harry and Ron transformed into the Slytherin boys while Hermione added Millicent Bulstrode's cat hair to her portion by mistake, forcing her to remain behind. The infiltration of the Slytherin common room went perfectly. Malfoy, relaxed among what he thought were his friends, spoke freely about the chamber. Father says the last time the chamber was opened, a mudblood died. It's only a matter of time before one is killed this time. He smirked. As for who's doing it, I wish I knew. Father won't tell me anything, just that I should keep my head down and let the heir get on with it. So you don't know who it is? Harry asked carefully. Malfoy scowled. No, I've told you already. But Father did say the chamber was opened 50 years ago. The culprit was expelled but released. Probably still in Azkaban. As their hour ran out, Harry and Ron rushed from the Slytherin dungeon, transforming back into themselves just in time. Malfoy doesn't know, Ron said, disappointed. He's not the heir. But his father knows something, Harry noted. Someone was caught last time but apparently wasn't the real heir since it's happening again. They returned to Moaning Myrtle's bathroom to check on Hermione, finding her transformed into a cat-human hybrid that took Madame Pomfrey weeks to fully reverse. While Hermione recovered in the hospital wing, Harry and Ron researched the chamber's previous opening. The library yielded little information until Harry thought to check old Daily Prophet archives. Here, he exclaimed one afternoon, finding a small article dated 50 years prior, Hogwarts student expelled in connection with tragic death. Rubeus Hagrid, 13, has been expelled from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry following the death of student Myrtle Warren. While details remain sealed due to the victim's age, sources confirm Hagrid kept dangerous creatures within the castle against school rules. His wand has been snapped, though he will remain at Hogwarts as gamekeeper's assistant through Headmaster Armando Dippet's clemency and the advocacy of Transfiguration Professor Albus Dumbledore. Hagrid? Ron gasped. They thought Hagrid opened the chamber. That's ridiculous, Harry said firmly. Hagrid loves magical creatures, but he'd never hurt students. Someone framed him. They agreed to visit Hagrid for answers, but before they could, another double attack occurred. Justin Finch-Fletchley and nearly headless Nick were found petrified in a corridor. The school erupted in panic. Students moved in tight groups, no one walking alone. Protective amulets and talismans sold briskly among the fearful. Harry knew he couldn't wait any longer. That night, he prepared to enter the chamber alone, armed with his wand, basilisk sleeping draught, and a blindfold enchanted by Rowena Ravenclaw's portrait to allow him to see shapes and movement without making direct eye contact with the basilisk. As he gathered his supplies in the room of requirement, Hermione and Ron burst in. "We know what you're planning," Hermione said accusingly. "You found the chamber and you're going alone." Harry sighed. "How did you figure it out?" "Myrtle told me you visited her bathroom asking about her death," Hermione explained. "Then I noticed you brewing a potion that wasn't polyjuice. It wasn't hard to connect the dots." "You're mental if you think we're letting you face a basilisk alone," Ron added firmly. Harry looked at his friends, Hermione still showing faint feline features from her polyjuice mishap, Ron with his broken wand hastily repaired with spellotape after a confrontation with the Whomping Willow earlier that year. "It's too dangerous," he protested. "The basilisk is why we're bringing these," Hermione interrupted, holding up 3 small hand mirrors. "Indirect sight, remember? We've done our research too." Harry felt a surge of gratitude. "I was going to use this," he said, showing them the enchanted blindfold. "Brilliant," Hermione admitted, examining it. "Where did you get the enchantment?" "A book," Harry said vaguely. "Look, if you're coming, we need a better plan than just the 3 of us stumbling around in the chamber." They spent the next hour strategizing. Hermione would focus on identifying any magical artifacts controlling the basilisk. Ron would watch their backs and maintain communication if they got separated. Harry, as the only Parselmouth, would attempt to command or at least distract the basilisk while deploying the sleeping draught. Just as they prepared to leave, Harry's map alerted him to a new portrait arrival in the room of requirement. Godric Gryffindor's frame appeared, his expression grave. "Another attack," he reported. "A student has been taken into the chamber itself. The message on the wall says, her skeleton will lie in the chamber forever." "Who?" Harry demanded, dread building. "Ginny Weasley." Ron went white. "My sister. We have to go now." Harry quickly explained to Hermione about his portrait connections, having no time for secrecy. She looked shocked but immediately focused on the crisis at hand. Who would target Ginny specifically, she wondered. Harry suddenly remembered Lucius Malfoy slipping something into Ginny's cauldron. "It's Ginny," he realized. She's the one Malfoy gave something to. She must have been possessed somehow into opening the chamber. They raced to Myrtle's bathroom. Harry opened the entrance with a Parseltongue command, revealing the dark pipe descending into the depths. "I'll go first," he said, adjusting his enchanted blindfold. "Follow only when I call that it's safe." He slid down the slimy pipe into darkness, landing in a tunnel littered with small animal bones. After confirming no immediate danger, he called up for Ron and Hermione to follow. The tunnel stretched ahead, curving out of sight. They moved carefully, wands illuminated, mirrors and blindfold ready for basilisk protection. "Ginny!" Ron called, his voice echoing eerily. "Shoo," Harry cautioned. "We don't want to alert whatever's waiting for us." They passed a massive snakeskin, confirming the basilisk's enormous size. Ron stumbled, accidentally triggering a minor cave-in that separated Harry from his friends. "Are you okay?" Harry called through a small gap in the rubble. "We're fine," Hermione replied. "But it will take time to clear a path. You need to go ahead, Ginny doesn't have much time." "I'll find her," Harry promised, continuing alone. The tunnel ended at a solid wall carved with two entwined serpents. Another Parseltongue command opened it to reveal the Chamber of Secrets proper, a vast hall supported by towering pillars carved as serpents, casting long shadows in the dim greenish light. At the far end stood an enormous statue of Salazar Slytherin. Before it lay a small, black-robed figure with flaming red hair, Ginny, pale and still as death. Harry rushed forward, dropping to his knees beside her. "Ginny! Wake up!" "She won't wake," said a soft voice behind him. Harry whirled around to face a tall, handsome boy of about 16, leaning against a pillar. He appeared slightly blurred around the edges, like a photograph coming into focus. Tom Riddle, Harry identified immediately, recognizing the face from Phineas's descriptions of the brilliant but disturbing Slytherin prefect who later became Lord Voldemort. Riddle's eyebrows rose slightly. "You know me?" "I know what you became," Harry said coldly, rising to face him. "Voldemort." Riddle smiled, his handsome features twisting into something cruel. "How interesting. The famous Harry Potter knows my future. Tell me, how did a mere infant defeat the greatest wizard of all time?" "Albus Dumbledore is the greatest wizard," Harry corrected, buying time as he assessed the situation. Ginny's life force was clearly draining into Riddle, making him more solid by the minute. Nearby lay a small black diary, the object Lucius Malfoy had planted. "Dumbledore has been driven from this castle by the mere memory of me," Riddle laughed. "He's not as gone as you might think," Harry replied, mind racing through combat strategies Elizabeth had drilled into him. The basilisk remained unseen, but Harry sensed its presence nearby. Riddle's eyes narrowed. "No matter. I have questions for you, Harry Potter. How did you survive my killing curse? How did a baby with no extraordinary magical talent defeat Lord Voldemort? Why do you care?" Harry asked, shifting to keep the diary in his peripheral vision while locating the basilisk's sleeping draft in his pocket. "Voldemort was after your time." "Voldemort," Riddle said softly, "is my past, present, and future." He traced fiery letters in the air with Harry's wand, which he had somehow acquired. Tom Marvolo Riddle with a wave, the letters rearranged themselves. "I am Lord Voldemort, you see," he whispered. "I fashioned myself a new name, one I knew wizards everywhere would fear to speak, when I became the greatest sorcerer in the world." "You're not," Harry said firmly. "Not what?" Riddle snapped. "Not the greatest sorcerer. You're not even alive right now, just a memory preserved in a diary, feeding off a little girl. Pretty pathetic for the greatest sorcerer, wouldn't you say?" Rage flashed across Riddle's face. "We'll see who's pathetic when you face my basilisk. Let's match the power of Lord Voldemort, heir of Salazar Slytherin, against the famous Harry Potter." He turned to the statue of Slytherin and hissed in Parseltongue, "Speak to me, Slytherin, greatest of the Hogwarts Four." The statue's mouth opened wide, revealing a dark tunnel from which Harry heard slithering movement. He quickly adjusted his blindfold and readied the sleeping draft. "Kill him," Riddle commanded in Parseltongue. The basilisk emerged, enormous, bright poisonous green, and deadly. Through his enchanted blindfold, Harry saw its shape without meeting its lethal gaze. "Don't attack," Harry hissed in Parseltongue. "I am not your enemy." The basilisk hesitated momentarily, confused by conflicting commands in its language. "I command you as Slytherin's heir," Riddle hissed angrily. "Kill the boy." Harry dodged as the basilisk struck, its massive head smashing into a pillar where he'd stood seconds before. He needed to disable the serpent before confronting Riddle and destroying the diary. Rolling beneath another strike, Harry flung the first vial of sleeping draught directly at the basilisk's face. It shattered, releasing a cloud of purple mist. The basilisk recoiled, thrashing as the potion began taking effect, but not quickly enough. Its tail swept across the chamber floor, catching Harry and sending him flying into a wall. Pain exploded through his ribs as he struggled to his feet, the basilisk still advancing though moving more sluggishly. Harry threw his second vial, striking the serpent's open mouth. The effect was immediate, the basilisk swayed, then collapsed with a thunderous crash that shook the entire chamber. "Parseltongue won't save you, Potter," Riddle snarled, enraged by the basilisk's defeat. "I may not have my full powers yet, but I don't need them to kill you." He raised Harry's wand, but Harry was faster. Years of dueling practice with Elizabeth flowed through his muscles as he cast wandlessly, Expelliarmus. His wand flew from Riddle's grasp into his own hand. In the same fluid motion, Harry aimed at the diary. "Incendio," he shouted, but Riddle deflected the flames with a wandless shield. "Impressive," Riddle admitted, advancing slowly. "Wandless magic at your age? Perhaps you do have some talent. But you're still no match for me, even as a memory." Harry knew Riddle was right, the memory was growing stronger by the second as Ginny weakened. He needed to destroy the diary immediately. A flash of red and gold suddenly streaked into the chamber, Fawkes, Dumbledore's phoenix, carrying the sorting hat. The bird dropped the hat at Harry's feet, then circled to attack Riddle, clawing at his face. "Get off!" Riddle shouted, swatting at the phoenix. Harry grabbed the sorting hat, puzzled at how it could help. Something hard and heavy thudded into his head from inside the hat. He pulled out a gleaming silver sword with rubies the size of eggs embedded in its hilt. As Riddle blasted Fawkes away with a wandless curse, Harry lunged for the diary, Gryffindor's sword raised high. Riddle realized his intention too late. "No!" he screamed as Harry plunged the sword through the diary. Ink spurted from the book like blood. Riddle writhed and twisted, screaming in agony as his form disintegrated. With a final shriek, the memory of Tom Riddle vanished. Silence fell over the chamber. The basilisk lay unconscious nearby, its massive bulk rising and falling with slow breaths. Ginny stirred, color returning to her cheeks as Riddle's hold over her broke. "Harry," she whispered, sitting up groggily. Her eyes widened in horror as she saw the chamber, the basilisk, and the ruined diary. "Oh no, it was me. But I didn't mean to, Riddle made me." "The diary, I know," Harry said gently, helping her to her feet. "It wasn't your fault. Riddle possessed you through the diary." "The basilisk, is it dead?" she asked fearfully. "Just sleeping," Harry assured her. "It was being controlled against its will, just like you." Footsteps approached as Ron and Hermione finally broke through the cave-in. "Ginny!" Ron cried, rushing to hug his sister. "How will we get back up the pipe?" Hermione asked practically, eyeing the unconscious basilisk with scientific fascination. Fawkes circled overhead, trilling a meaningful note. "I think Fawkes will help us," Harry said, understanding the phoenix's intention. "His tail feathers can carry immense weight." As they prepared to leave, Harry paused, looking back at the sleeping basilisk. He couldn't leave it to wake alone and confused. Wait here, he told the others, approaching the serpent cautiously. Harry, what are you doing? Hermione called anxiously. Fixing a mistake, Harry replied. He placed his hand on the basilisk scales and spoke in Parseltongue, sleep peacefully. When you wake, remain here until a true heir of Slytherin comes with noble purpose. Your purpose is to protect Hogwarts, not harm its students. The basilisk shifted slightly in its sleep, as if acknowledging the command. Harry rejoined his friends, picking up the sword and the sorting hat. Let's go. Fawkes transported them back through the pipes with his magical strength, depositing them in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom where they found McGonagall, Dumbledore, and the other teachers organizing a search party. My word, McGonagall gasped at their filthy, bloodied appearance. Dumbledore's eyes, however, twinkled with something between pride and intense curiosity as they focused on Harry. I think, he said calmly, you all have quite a story to tell us. In Dumbledore's office, they explained everything, Riddle's diary, Ginny's possession, the basilisk, and Harry's confrontation in the chamber. Harry carefully edited his own role, describing his use of the sword while omitting his wandless magic and the sleeping draught. When Lucius Malfoy arrived, outraged at Dumbledore's return to the school, Harry cleverly tricked him into freeing Dobby the house elf, who, as it turned out, had been trying to protect Harry by sealing the platform barrier. Later, after Ron and Hermione had taken Ginny to the hospital wing, Dumbledore held Harry back for a private conversation. First, I must thank you, the headmaster said seriously. You must have shown me real loyalty down in the chamber. Nothing but that could have called Fawkes to you. Harry nodded, uncomfortable under Dumbledore's penetrating gaze. And second, I wonder if you might satisfy an old man's curiosity, Dumbledore continued. The basilisk is, according to your account, merely sleeping rather than dead. A rather unusual outcome when faced with such a creature. Harry tensed. The sword didn't kill it. It just knocked it out when I hit it. Indeed. Most remarkable. And your ability to communicate with it in Parseltongue, a talent typically associated with Slytherin's bloodline, you attribute to a transfer of abilities the night Voldemort gave you that scar. It seems the most logical explanation, Harry said carefully. Dumbledore nodded slowly. Perhaps. Though I wonder, the portraits of Hogwarts have been unusually active these past 2 years. Several have relocated to frames near Gryffindor Tower. Others appear in unexpected locations, particularly where you happen to be studying. Harry maintained a neutral expression, his occlumency shields firmly in place. I hadn't noticed, sir. No. Most students don't. Portraits are such a common feature of magical buildings that they fade into the background. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. Unless, of course, one has reason to pay them special attention. Harry said nothing, waiting. You know, Harry, Dumbledore continued conversationally, Hogwarts has always had a special connection to those who truly need it. The castle itself possesses a form of sentience, not consciousness as we understand it, but awareness. It responds to certain students in unique ways. That sounds fascinating, Professor, Harry said noncommittally. Indeed it is. In all my years as headmaster, I've observed the castle choosing particular students for special attention. Sometimes it manifests as moving staircases that always lead where they need to go. Other times, hidden rooms that appear at moments of necessity. And occasionally. He paused significantly, occasionally, the portraits take an unusual interest in a student's education. Harry met Dumbledore's eyes steadily. Hogwarts helped me when I needed it, he acknowledged finally. It's been my true home from the moment I arrived. And perhaps, Dumbledore suggested gently, even before that. They regarded each other in silence for a long moment. Whatever resources have aided you, Harry, you've used them wisely and honorably. That speaks to your character more than your capabilities. Dumbledore rose from his desk. I would never interfere with Hogwarts when it chooses to extend special assistance to a worthy student. I merely wish to acknowledge that I recognize the pattern. Harry stood as well. Thank you, sir. One last thing, Harry. Should you ever feel that your educational supplements have provided information that might help me protect the school and its students, my door remains open. Harry nodded. I'll remember that, Professor. The end of term arrived with celebration. The petrified victims were revived with Mandrake restorative draft, exams were cancelled as a school treat, and Gryffindor won the House Cup for the second year running. On their last evening, Harry visited the room of requirement for a final consultation with his portrait mentors before summer separation. You handled the chamber incident admirably, Phineas commented. Though revealing your Parseltongue ability was perhaps inevitable. Dumbledore knows about you, Harry told them. Not everything, but he's figured out the portraits have been teaching me. We suspected as much, Elizabeth said. He's been observing portrait movements throughout the castle. Is that a problem? Harry asked anxiously. Not necessarily, Godric answered. Albus Dumbledore has always understood that Hogwarts itself sometimes intervenes in students' education. He won't interfere, though he'll watch more carefully now. The concerning element, Edmund added, is that Voldemort has now made 2 attempts to return within 2 years. The diary Horcrux represents an escalation in danger. Horcrux. Harry repeated. A container for a soul fragment, Salazar explained grimly. The darkest magic imaginable, requiring murder to create. The diary contained a piece of Voldemort's soul, anchoring him to life even after his body was destroyed. Harry felt sick. Could there be more of these, Horcruxes? Almost certainly, Helena Ravenclaw said quietly. The diary's destruction hasn't ended the threat. Voldemort will try again, through other means. Then I need to be ready, Harry said firmly. This summer, I want to focus on more advanced defensive magic and anything that might help identify or destroy Horcruxes. His mother's portrait, which had remained quiet during most of the meeting, finally spoke. Harry, you've accomplished extraordinary things these past 2 years. But remember, you're still a child. This burden shouldn't be yours alone. Harry smiled at her sadly. It's been mine since the night you died, Mum. But I'm not alone anymore. I have Ron and Hermione. I have all of you. And maybe now, I can even have Dumbledore's help without revealing everything. The portraits exchanged glances, silently acknowledging the truth in his words. Very well, Phineas said finally. This summer, we'll continue your education with particular focus on advanced defense and soul magic. But you must promise to exercise greater caution. The events of this year nearly cost you your life several times. I promise, Harry agreed. No unnecessary risks. As he prepared to leave, Godric Gryffindor's portrait called him back. Harry, one final word. The sword you pulled from the hat, it comes only to a true Gryffindor in moments of great need. Remember that it absorbed basilisk venom in the chamber. That makes it one of the few weapons capable of destroying Horcruxes. Harry nodded solemnly. I'll remember. Walking back to Gryffindor Tower, Harry reflected on the extraordinary journey that had begun 7 years ago when a portrait first appeared in his cupboard. From a frightened, lonely child to a wizard capable of defeating Voldemort twice, his transformation had been remarkable. Yet he sensed the greatest challenges still lay ahead. Voldemort would return, not as a memory or a parasite, but in full power. When that day came, Harry would need every lesson, every spell, every strategy his portrait mentors had taught him. But for now, as he joined Ron and Hermione in the common room for a final game of exploding snap before the journey home, Harry allowed himself to simply be a 12-year-old boy enjoying time with his friends. Tomorrow would bring new struggles, but tonight belonged to childhood, a childhood reclaimed from the darkness of his cupboard under the stairs through the friendship of faces in frames. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.